Hi, lords and ladies, welcome back to the video after a long time, and this is my first sort of genre trying to experiment. So today I'm gonna do a deep research about the best series that I've ever watched, and one of the best, yeah, you can say best, and that is a Game of Thrones universe. And you can see this entire thing, the wallpaper, the dragon, the mother of dragon, Jon Snow, you know nothing, and all those things. So yeah, so today I'm gonna deep dive into the world of Game of Thrones. And I've always been a cinephile. I've always had a deep, passionate about the movies, series, and God knows how many movies and series that I've watched. I've watched a tons, loads and loads, and particularly this series because it's a very very long series, and this it's in it's entirely like a fiction, sort of science fiction also because there's a dragon and all those. I wouldn't say science fictions as such, but yeah, it's a fiction, and it's the writer is none other than George R. R. Martin. I mean, let's look it up. I'll show you. George. No, not George Orwell. George Martin. George R. R. Martin. George Martin. Okay, where is R. R.? George. He's an author. He's an American author, and he's 77 years old. And TV shows House of Dragons, Night of the Seven Kingdom, the book, the Game of Thrones, the Winds of the Winter, the Fire and Blood, a dragon, a Dance with the Dragon, the Hedge Knight. They, I have not seen the last one, the Dream of Spirit. Okay, so I've started during lockdown, and the first one that I saw was the Game of Thrones, and I was blown away. Totally, I was blown away by the movie, and I mean, there's an eighth season, and would I like a different ending? No, I think ending is fine to me, but what I'm disappointed rather is with the fact that the entire from the first season, the build up was about the winter is coming from the Starks. The winter is coming, and there was a build up that the Night King, the dead people are coming, and there was a build up, right? That there's an enemy, other side of the wall, and then in season I think seven, if I'm not wrong, it's season 7 or 8. They, they defeated. I wouldn't say easily, but it was quite simple, right? And I would want the Night King to be killed by Jon Snow rather than Arya Stark. So that one first, and second is I think they could have done better with the fight with the night, the night the dead walkers, or you could also say the dead people. So yeah, I think that's my main critique. Other than that, I think it was fine. But when I see in YouTube the review of such things, most of the people criticize with respect to the fact that after season 6, 7, 8, and 9, after 6, 5 ending, 6, 7, 8, most of the people they don't like it, but I don't know, I think I'm fine with it. My only problem with this is that the Night King, they could have, he was easily defeated, right? That too, it was defeated by Arya Stark. I would have wanted it to be defeated by Jon Snow. So this is the George R. R. Martin, and so yeah, you have to understand that the book version and the cinema versions are a little different. The book version, he's the original writer. He created those all characters and all those things. And book versions, they have to make it short because the book version is very very long, and they have to they couldn't include all the characters because there are a lot of, just wait, okay, if I'm in book version of Game of Thrones, how many characters were there? I think there are loads and loads of characters, so it's not possible for the to include all the characters. So the book series Song of Ice and Fire features approximately 2,000 to 3,000 named characters, including 31 distinct point of views. Yeah, I mean, I've tried reading few pages and from Song of in online PDF, and all the storylines were narrated from a different point of view. For example, There's a first it goes to, just an example, right? First, if it's a Jon Snow, then he, the entire few pages were, written from the point of view of the Jon Snow, what all happened, and then Tywin Lannister, Tyrion Lannister, Cersei Lannister, all those things. And yeah, but I've watched the entire series multiple times. I think more than 10 times I've watched the entire series. And not only Game of Thrones, I've watched so right after Game of Thrones 8 seasons, so there was a, House of Dragons season 1 and 2, and I've watched, the House of Dragons season 1 and 2, and after that then came the Night of the Seven Kingdom, and I've watched that too. And the season 1 is completed. The season 2, I think it's coming. I'm not exactly sure when it is coming, but I think I know the storyline. I don't know. I know the book because I've read this, the summary of the storyline. So I'm not exactly sure how they will follow it up. And yeah, so right now, the season 3 of the House of Dragon is going on, and season 3 House of Dragon is going on. So every Monday, I think there's a till now. I mean, yesterday was Monday, so here in India, it comes 8 o'clock in early 8 o'clock every morning, every Monday, because it premieres in, I think in US and UK and all those things, and it comes Sunday evening. So here it becomes Monday morning. Monday morning, yeah. So no, I think yeah, Sunday morning, around Sunday morning here in a Monday morning. So yeah, so I've watched it, and I think, and now last week, next Monday, it's going to be the last season. I think the last episode. It's going to be I think there is 8 episode in one season. That is the third season. So 7 is done now. The last one is done. The last one is left. Where I don't know if the Aemon will be killed, or will there be direct duel between Daemon Targaryen and Aemon Targaryen. We have to see it, and I've pretty much know the book version because I've read the entire. I couldn't read the entire book because it's very long, but I've read the entire summary of all those things, and yeah, the Blood and Fire also, which is the entire story of the House Targaryen. I know most of the dragons also. I like doing research about all the dragons. My favorite is, I like Vhagar, man. It's big, but other dragons are also fine. I think the dream in yesterday's episode, there was a little bleak picture or a mention of Helena's dragon, that is Dreamfire. That one looks unique, I have to say that. And I think Sea Smoke is also, it's unique. It has entire like gray color. Just wait, okay, I'll see the Sea Smoke dragon rider. I think yeah, it's this one I'm talking about. So yeah, looks beautiful. But yeah, the biggest one is Balerion. It's not alive. Second, it's Vhagar. Third, I think it's Vermithon, right? So it's Vermithon or Vermithor. Okay, Vermithor, right? The rider is quite. See, okay, where is the rider? First, it was the King Jaehaerys Targaryen. Later, riders took, yeah, who with the hammer, right? During the Dance of the Dragons. So, I think in that particular, duration, the Dance of the Dragons, where I think more than 17 dragons were killed, right? Only few survived, and later the Game of Thrones. So I'll just give you a little context of it, right? First came a Game of Thrones. The entire book series is known as A Song of Ice and Fire, and so this one came, and then came House of Dragons, right? House of Dragon is 200 years before the Game of Thrones, and 2 seasons of House of Dragons came, and then came Night of the Seven Kingdom. So Night of the Seven Kingdom is, I think, not exactly sure, but yeah, around 90 to 100 years before Game of Thrones. So let's is Night of Seven Kingdom before how many years of GOT? I think it's 90, around 89 years. Yeah, A Night of the Seven Kingdom is set approximately 89 years before the beginning of the Game of Thrones. So the I think it's Aegon Targaryen, right? The Maester of the Citadel and the Night's Watch. That person is alive. I think he was mentioned. Okay, so not exactly sure, but yeah, he was mentioned in the Game of Thrones. He was there in the Game of Thrones, and I think he was there. I think he was the son, or I think brother of Aegon, right? Just wait, okay, not Aegon. It's the egg. Night of the Seven Kingdom. A lot of characters. Even I get confused. Okay, so yeah, the egg, right? Okay, the egg. And Game of Thrones, Master of Citadel. CI Master. Okay, Maestro. I think it's called Maestro of Citadel. Maestro of Citadel. Of Knights Watch Citadel. Okay, Master Aemon, wise Targaryen, the wise Targaryen who survey a castle, right? So Aemon, A-E, Aemon Targaryen. That's no, it's not Aemon. Yeah, Aemon Targaryen, right? Okay. So his relationship is Egg Maester Aemon. No, he's not. No, Egg is not Maester Aemon. They are two different people who are brothers. Egg is the younger brother. Okay. So what happened was, Egg is the younger brother, and Maester Aemon is the older brother. So Maester Aemon said that because he is the older brother, so he has claim to the throne, and he said, I don't want it. And then because of that, I think the egg became, the. Okay, just wait. Even I'm not exactly sure. So let's start together. Okay, Aemon Targaryen. Okay, relation. Okay, relation to the Mad King. Maester Aemon Targaryen is the great uncle of the Mad Viserys. Okay, Aerys second Targaryen in the books. So the Game of Thrones universe element simplified the line to make Aemon his uncle. So yeah, there's a so to keep an entire book series of Game of Thrones and House of Dragons and what is it called? Knight of the Seven Kingdom. The Song of Ice and Fire, okay, the Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones is entirely like the Song of Ice and Fire, and the Targaryen history books, House of Dragons. The Song of Ice and Fire is still not completed. The book is still not completed. So the maker, that means the show, those people who are making the show, they had to make their own story at the end because the story is not completed. The Targaryen history book, House of Dragons, the Wandering Knight Tales, the Knight of the Seven Kingdom. Okay, so Game of Thrones. So yeah, you could see I'll show you the books, right? How does it look? So this is how the book looks. George R. Martin, the Game of Thrones. Okay, George R. Martin. Okay, and all those things. And with respect to the Game of Thrones, I've always been a House Stark. I like Ned Stark, but I do sometimes feel like he should have done better, right? Character. I thought he was the main character initially when I started watching the movie, right? The series, right? I thought the season 1, episode 1, 2. I thought he was the main. He was the main character, which he is in the first season. But I just have to mention everyone that there's a spoiler alert. But I didn't know that he gets killed. I mean, all of a sudden, I was shocked. I thought he will not get killed. So, yeah. And I like his entire family, honestly. His name is, first is goes to Eddard Stark. This is the guy, okay, the Eddard Stark. This is the guy, and Eddard Stark. And his wife is Catelyn Stark. And they have first Robb Stark. And you could technically say, you can also say Jon Snow. I mean, I'll just give, not son as such, but I'll give you his family, right, together. And then they have Theon Greyjoy and Sansa Stark. I like her character development also. Initially, she was very naive, spoiled brat, but later, after going through such experience, she becomes very wise. And yeah, she becomes later the queen, or the queen of the North. And I like Robb Stark. I think he's the most handsome person in the entire show, but even he gets killed in the Red Wedding. And then you have two younger brothers. One is the I think I forgot about his name. What is it? Brandon Stark. So he becomes later the wise person, and then he becomes later the king. And I forgot about the Robb Stark. Okay, so Eddard Stark. What is the other person's? Eddard Stark children name? Actually, Richard Stark. I think it's something like that. Names Richard Stark, or so this is the family tree. So Rickard Stark. Okay, so Brandon Stark. So the Brandon Stark, it's the uncle of. Okay, no, it's a Benjen Stark. Okay, Brandon Stark. So Eddard Stark and Catelyn Tully. Okay, so there is Robb Stark, Sansa Stark, Arya Stark, Bran Stark, and Rickon Stark, and the Eddard Stark's brother, it's a Benjen Stark. He joins the Night's Watch later, which helped Jon Snow and all. And then their sister is Lyanna Stark. So the entire, so before there was a rule of the Mad King, entire Targaryen people, and then later what happened was that the Rhaegar Targaryen. So the entire thing is misconceptions. Is that Lyanna Stark loves Rhaegar Targaryen, but Robert Baratheon, who is the childhood friend of the Eddard Stark, that person likes Lyanna Stark. So they were to get married, but later, Rhaena Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, they elopes, from the family, and then they go, and then she gives birth to Jon Snow, which is an ultimate twist because everyone thinks that Jon Snow is the son of Eddard Stark, the bastard son of Eddard Stark. So that's why most of the people, most of the lords, right? Not most, everyone, all the lords in the north, whoever has a bastard, they have to give their last name Snow. They will not get a Stark name. They will get Jon Snow. I think there's a mistake. It's not Arya Tully. It's an Arya Stark. So yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, these are all the people, and yeah, these are the people. Robb Stark, he gets killed. I mean, I was like shocked, man, after seeing it. And this is the sigil. It's the Winter Wolf. The wolf. I think what is it called, man? I forgot. Winter Wolf. No, it's not called. Wolf of. Okay, Starks are called. What, man? I forgot about it. Grey Wolf. No, Sansa's wolf. Okay. The giant wolf belonging to the Stark family are called dire wolf. Yeah, dire wolf. I forgot about the dire wolves. And most, okay, Grey Wind, Lady, Nymeria, Summer, Shaggy Dogs, and Ghost. So yeah, each Stark has one. That is, first it goes to Robb Stark, Grey Wind, and Sansa Stark, Lady. And Arya Stark, it's a Nymeria. She later abandons because she had a little, because that dog, bites Joffrey Baratheon. I'll tell you, the character that I absolutely hate, abhor, right? But I mean, they have done a fantastic job. I'm not saying that they have not done a fantastic job, but the character I don't like is that first, it has to be Joffrey Baratheon, and second, I would say it's what is it called, man? I forgot about it. Who marries? Stuck. Ramsay Bolton. Yeah, Ramsay Bolton. I don't like this character at all. I mean, he's done a fantastic job. And one of my favorite characters is also Tyrion Lannister. So Tyrion Lannister. Okay. So yeah. So this is the basic of it. And now let's go to the world of Game of Thrones. We'll see the map. So the entire thing is. So the entire Game of Thrones is divided into map is divided into two. That is first the Westeros and the Essos. So yeah, the known world. The known world is composed of at least 3 continents: Westeros, Essos, and this is the first time I'm hearing it, Sotheros, a landmass, Volthos, and a number of many smaller ideas. None of the 4 major landmasses have been completely mapped, and how much of the world remains unexplored. While the maesters of the Westeros know a good deal about the lands to the far east, his distance is still an issue, and past a certain point midst, and legends become a factor in their records. The known world is a part of the round planet which might be a little larger than Earth. There might be a small folk who believes they would be a flat. On the whole, however, wise men and scholars from various civilizations to Valyria, Kurt, Yoki, and the Maester of Westeros have known for centuries that the world is a round globe. Based on the observation from astronomy, these scholars each determined that the only way to the motion of the stars makes sense is of the world is round. It is therefore understood that it is possible in a principle for a ship to circumnavigate the globe, but despite the efforts of the several legs, no one has ever succeeded in it. So let's go to the history, right? So this is the this is the Westeros. This is the Westeros. This is the Essos, and this entire sea in between is known as the Narrow Sea, the known world, right? So the entire thing happens here. The known world, Westeros, main article, Westeros, located in the far west of the known world, far west of the known world. The continent of Westeros is a long and relatively narrow, extending from Dorne in the south to the lands of the Always Winters in the north. The walls, okay, so this is the winter. The wall, the border between the Seven Kingdoms and the land beyond the wall to the north is just wait. The border between the Seven Kingdoms and the land beyond the wall to the north is 300 miles long, indicating that the Westeros is roughly 900 miles wide and its diameter is from east to west. 900 miles is not that big, man. North of the wall, much land remains uncharted. Westeros contains the seven kingdoms south of the wall and the land of the always winter north of the wall. So I'll show you something. Okay, it's interesting. I'm so fascinated by all of those things. I don't know. I've always been fascinated with this. That the Lord, the Lady. I mean, I like their language also. So yeah. So you could see my X bio. I mean, why is it coming over here, man? Just wait. Where the my okay. My profile. Let's look and okay. So what is it written? It's written Vaese of Chisur clan. Vaese of clan Chisur, first of his name, Lord of all the realms, seen and unseen, protector of the universe. I shall be just and just and a kind ruler, no taxes. So it's just a fun because so when in all those in Game of Thrones and not just Game of Thrones, in other Night of the Seven Kingdoms and even the later medieval European, when someone mentions the king, the queen, the lords, right, they have to keep all the titles, right. For example, I, Robert Baratheon, the king of the seven, or the king of the seven kingdom, the Andals, and blah blah blah, protector of the universe, protector of the seven kingdom, all those things they have to mention it. So yeah, so let's go here. Westeros contains the seven kingdoms. So yeah, Westeros contains, it's like the seven countries. Okay, Westeros contains the seven kingdoms south of the wall and the land of the always winter north of the wall. The seven kingdom first unified under the Targaryen rule. So the person who did was the Aegon the Conqueror with his dragon Balerion are made of the 9 regions: the Crown Lands, the Dorne, the Iron Islands, and north the Reach, the Riverlands, and the Stormlands. Stormland. Okay, so I'll just give you. Okay, the Stormland is the Baratheons, the Vale of Arryn, and the Western Lands, bordering on the west like the sunsets. So to the south and narrow to the west. Okay, this one's a Shivering Sea to the north. Right. So this is the Westeros. Now, if this is the world map, okay, location of the known world. So this is the known world. Okay, because there are unknown unknowns also, right? The known knowns, known unknowns, unknown unknowns, unknown knowns, right? So this is the Westeros, and now this is the Essos. And okay, now comes the Essos. Separated from, it's so fascinating that the persons, this is the entire imagination of a single person, George R.R. Martin. And not only that, he made a specific language for for his, I wouldn't say entire thing, but for a specific person. For example, in there, most of the Targaryen, right, and Valoran people, they speak Valerian. The dragon, they speak Valerian, they understand Valerian, right? So they had to make a Valerian, linguist also, some words. Separated from the Westeros by the narrow sea, Westeros extends eastwards for many thousands of miles. It is larger than Westeros, but much of it consists of a less densely populated steep plains and deserts. The western edge of the continent is controlled by the 9 free cities, while the city-states of Slaverby are in the south central region. Much of the continental interior known as the Dothraki area. So yeah, this one comes in the Game of Thrones also. The grasslands ruled by the tribal warrior known as the Dothraki. Further east is Korath and the fabled Jade Sea. The map lands of Essos are divided by the Bone Mountains, which runs from the Shivering Sea in the north. Is okay, Jade one stand. Okay, Grey Waste, Mesa. Okay. Now this comes to Sothros, right? That means south is also known as the Sothros. This is the south of the Essos on the far side of the Summer Sea. It is a large continent, perhaps as long as an Essos is wide, consisting of deserts and jungles and mountains. It is said to have a haven for plague and dangerous animals, and it has not been explored much by the Westeros beyond the northern coastal region. The Summer Islands may have the map of the continent. It is a constant, but they don't share the knowledge. Okay, the Ulthos seas, other lands. Okay, so these are the quotes. It has been long. Okay, Maester Oriental. So Maester means the people who are like the wise. It's like the philosophers, right? The masters. It has been long accepted among the wise that our world is round. If it is true, it ought to be possible to sail over the top of the world and down. It's far right, and they discover the lands. Okay, so behind the scene. Okay, all of those things is there. Okay, this is the map, right? I want to show you. Okay, so Westeros. Not now. We'll talk about the Westeros map in Game of Thrones. Now we'll talk about the houses, right? So giddy up. So this is a simple map, right? This is the Westeros. So most of the Game of Thrones happens in this area. Yeah, some people do come. Dothraki comes from the Essos, but there's a big narrow sea which you have to cross. So yeah, so this is the entire Westeros. So we'll start from here. So this entire area is known as, I mean, this entire up is known as a north, right? See, okay, this entire known as north, right? And then this known as a south, and then all this comes. And even in north, right, there is one ruling house, but there are multiple house, right? There are multiple house, but there are one ruling house. So there is a wall, a big ice wall to separate from the further north, because most of the people believe that that time north of the wall there are dead people and all those things. So dead people, in a sense that dead people, people who died, they, you know, they become alive, and then they, yeah, try to kill the people who are, so it's basically the war between the living and the non-living, right? So yeah, so that's why they had a big wall here. And since the dead people, they cannot swim, so they will, you know, if they come, they have, you know, they will come from this area. And so the entire thing of Game of Thrones, you know, runs around this, that is the winter is coming. That means the dead people, they're like the entire ice thing, so they come from the wind, right? So the big winter, the winter is coming. And it's not okay. So here in our, you know, world right now, when we say that the winter is coming, there's a you know, the 4 seasons, winter coming, it's only for 3-4 months, right? It's not like that, okay? The winter, I think it's going to be like a very, very long 5-6 long winter. Just wait, okay, I'll see. Okay, longest winter Game of Thrones, right? It's going to be very, very long, right? The long night, the longest recorded winter in the Game of Thrones, the long night and generation winter lasted entire generation about 28 years. So yeah, I was talking about that thing, right? So where was I? So yeah, so this entire thing. And then people who go to the Night's Watch, they have to sacrifice everything. They cannot, you know, get married. They have to, you know, they cannot abandon their post. So it's basically like, it's a post, right? It's like a line of, you know, control where there's a border area, so they cannot leave. So yeah, they cannot get married and all those things. This is the entire wall. And yeah, so this is the wall, and there is a Lord Commander in the, there is a one Lord Commander in the wall. And so we'll start from here. This is the game, okay, this one. Then there is, I don't know about this one because it's not mentioned in the Game of Thrones. So yeah, Norri, there is a Wool, there's Hearted, I don't know this. And yeah, so this is the Umber. Umber means this is a, you know, also a good, you know, not very big, but yeah, it's a big, quite big house in the north. This entire thing is north. And yeah, this is Lord Umber. And this is the Mormont. And yeah, they are in an island, House Mormont. And there comes House Glover, House Ricewell, House Dustin, okay, and Glover, Hornwood, and Bolton. So this is, I think this should be the second last, just, you know, second, you know, the biggest house. And then Karstark, Umber, and then there's a Magnar, Staincrow, and then the biggest house is House Stark, and they are the ruling house of the entire north. And the head at that time is Eddard Stark, and the entire north capital, right? North's capital is Winterfell. That is where the family of the House Stark stays. And the person, you know, the Eddard Stark is not just the Lord, he is also known as the Warden of the North. That means he takes care of all the, because northern people, this generally, you know, accept it, you know, the fact that northern people are, they don't, you know, northern people, they don't trust the other people, other houses. They're a bit like a, you know, anxious, and they're a bit like a, you know, very, very difficult people to handle it. So that's why it's an entire thing is given to the House Stark that time, because they have a good relationship with all the coast. And so that person, Eddard Stark, is also known as the Warden of North. And then comes the other house. And yeah, so this is known as the Reed, the Flint of the, okay, so yeah, the Sunderlands, okay. I think Iron, where is Iron? I thought it's over there. Mormont, okay. And then there's small houses, Sutherlands, Reed, Corbury, okay, House Arryn. So most of the important houses are House Arryn, it's here, there's a tower and all, House Arryn. And no Hunter, okay, so Baelish, the Frey, this is the House Frey, between the Mallister, okay, Black Tide. These are not, you know, specifically mentioned. So yeah, this one is also mentioned, House Greyjoy. So House Greyjoy, one son, the person who stays with the here with Eddard Stark, and he treats him like a son, is Theon Greyjoy. and his father stays in this one. So House Greyjoy, he later betrays, which is another matters, which again he makes up for the mistake that he made. Okay, so all those house, lots and loads of house, man. I don't know, man. I don't know most of the house. I know House Tully. House Tully, Catelyn Stark comes from this house, House Tully, and this is also a very important house. I think one of the most powerful houses, House Lannister. It's here, House Lannister, and their capital is their main castle is Castle Rock, and I think House Greyjoy is it's Iron Bounds, something like that, Iron something, and House Lannister. Okay, all those house. Okay, I don't know about all those house. This is the King's Landing. I think King's Landing is the capital, right? Okay. King's Landing is the capital of, yeah, King's Landing is the capital and largest city of the Seven Kingdoms in Georgia Martins. Okay, and okay, Iron Throne. Okay, the seat part of where the ruler of the realm sits, the Red Keep, the castle on the hill where the king and his court lives, the Red Keep, right? Okay, the Iron Throne stand, Blackwater Bay, the large body of water next to the river. Okay, so yeah, so this is the capital city, and King's Landing is the capital city, and Iron Throne is here. And yeah, so there's a House Targaryen. Okay, House Targaryen, sure. Okay, this is the Villa Rome, which is not mentioned, which is not particularly mentioned in the Game of Thrones. This one comes in House of Dragons, so another matter altogether. So House Targaryen is here. This one also plays a very important role. So there is a Harrenhal, all those Harrenhal. Yeah, Harrenhal is here, right? So Harrenhal is here, and Castle Rock, the important, and the Red Keep, and then there is a Winterfell, and then important High Tower. Okay, so High Tower it's here. High Tower it's here, which is not particularly mentioned. I think it's not even mentioned single times in the Game of Thrones. But this one plays a very important role in House of Dragons. Black Bar, Old Town. Old Town. This is the capital, right? This Old Town is the capital city or the residence of the High Tower family. Torrance, Fowler. Okay, Uller. Okay, I don't know about all of these things. Tollens. Okay, the Lords and Lords of the House. The Peak. Okay, Swans. Okay, House Tyrell. Oh, this one also plays quite an important role. House Tyrell. Roxanne. Okay, where are the other house, man? Where is House Baratheon? Okay, yeah, House Baratheon. It's here. House Baratheon, and their capital. Just wait. Okay, House Baratheon. House Baratheon's family tree. No, not family tree. Their capital is House Baratheon capital. House Baratheon royal capital is King's Landing, where they rule the Seven Kingdoms from the Red Keeps, while their regional ancestry is the Storm's End. Okay, Storm's End. Castle is House Baratheon castle is Storm's End. Okay, it's known as a Storm's End. Okay, so this is the Storm's End. Okay, House Baratheon. Okay, so this is the Storm's End. So yeah, so this is the house. Okay, houses and this is the great houses and Westeros. There is their motto, right? Winterfell, House Stark. My favorite. It's winter is coming. And then second, House Arryn. I think if it's House Arryn, it's as high as honor, and Tully, it's family, duty, and honor. And the second is, I think this is Greyjoy, right? We do not sow. And then Lannister, hear me roar. Lannister always pays its debt, right? Okay, hear me roast. Ours is the Fury. That is the House Baratheon. Growing strong. I think I don't know about this house. Just wait. Okay, all GOT castles and their house. So yeah, these are important. I think I know most of it, right? I know Aerie is where it's like a House Arryn, right? House Arryn, where if they want to kill, they just throw it from the high. It's basically like they're in the cloud or something, because it's that tall. And Pike, Storm's End, Baratheon, Grey Watch, Grey Water Watch, Sunspear, Riverrun. I think Riverrun is of whose? I forgot about it. So Riverrun is which house? Riverrun. House Tully. Okay, House Tully. House Tully. Okay, I get confused between House Tully, House Tyrell, and House Tully family tree. Okay, House Tully. House Tully. House Tully. Oster, okay, and Catelyn Stark, okay, Australia, Catelyn, Eddard Stark, okay, Rob Stark, all those things, Lysa, that's okay, Lysa, okay, he marries Jon Arryn, okay, and then he comes to the Jon Arryn, okay, Jon Arryn, that is the, so yeah, so this is the Reverend House Tullist, and Castle Black, this is the Night's Watch, Red Forts to Winterfell, High Garden, I think it's Margaret Tyrell, High Garden is, which house Tyrell, if I'm not wrong. What's your title? Okay, House Tyrell, High Garden is just High Tyrell, and Harrenhal, Castle Dock, that is for the Lannister, and the Red Keep, that is the King's Landing, Dragonstone, Baratheon, no, Dragonstone, I think it's Targaryen. So yeah, that's it. So the Western maps is done, and yeah, so most of it is done. This is the House Baratheon, so that's why it's in the King's Landing, because that time the ruler was House Baratheon. The entire story is there with respect to Game of Thrones. Doesn't start with the Targaryens, the Mad King, right? Okay, it's already done. House of the Game of Thrones, the scene, right? It starts with when everything is finished. House of Dragon is finished, and when the Targaryens, the ruling Targaryen is being defeated by the Baratheon people. Robert Baratheon, to be very specific, Robert Baratheon with the Eddard Stark and all. It started with the Targaryen sort of kidnapping Eddard Stark's sister, which is not kidnapping because that sister loves the Targaryen, so that's why they ran away, eloped. But there was a misunderstanding, all those things. So that's why the entire rebellion starts with the against the Targaryens, and that's why it's known as the Robert Baratheon's rebellion, rebellion, which led to the change of regime, sort of say using a geopolitical term, change of regime in the King's Landing, and then comes the Baratheon people, and then the Hand of the King becomes the Jon Arryn, who is married to the sister of Catelyn Stark, and I mean then everything runs plays, and then the entire Game of Thrones, the fight, it has to. The Lord Baelish has to plays a very important role there, because he was the person who sparked the entire thing, right? He was the person which led to the entire Game of Thrones fights and all those things. So yeah, this is it. This is the house, important house. And
my map. Here's King's Landing in Blackwater Bay. This area here is the gullet that you have to go through, and Dragonstone and Driftmark are the two major islands in the gullet.
Driftmark, I think this is the capital city of Valerian, if I'm not wrong. Just wait. Capital city of Valero. I think it's Driftmark. Okay, so the House Valerian does not have a traditional capital city, as they are a noble, lordly house rather than an independent kingdom. Instead, they rule from an ancestral island seat of the Driftmark. I want to see. Okay, Driftmark. How does it look? Driftmark. Okay, so this one. Okay.
Driftmark is the seat of House Valerian, and right here are the Stepstones. And you see, this is Dorne, and this is Essos. And one time they were connected. There was a land bridge, and the broken arm of Dorne, the seas rose up and swallowed them. But they left these islands. And as you see, as you go down the narrow sea, and you want to go into the summer sea, you have to pass through the Stepstones. They're these independent islands that have frequently been the haunt of pirates. And all of the trade, anything going down has to pass through these. And you remember that Corlys Valerian and his family are merchants, and they make a lot of their wealth through trade.
I would urge that you not allow this triarchy much latitude in the Stepstones, Your Grace. If those shipping lanes should fall, it will beggar our ports.
Immediately to the east of the Stepstones is an area called the Disputed Lands. 3 of the 3 cities are located on or near that: Lys, Myr, and Tyrosh. And these cities have been rivals for a long time. They're all old Valyrian colonies, and they've been disputing the Disputed Lands for hundreds of years, often using mercenary companies to police again. Then the land cracked, the sea, the doom that.
So now let's go to the Game of Thrones. Okay, first let's go to the important houses. Okay, houses of Game of Thrones. and their sigil and their motto. So everything all in one. Why is it shaking? Why is it lagging? Okay, so the first is, as always, the fans' favorite, House Stark. Yeah, most of the people, they like House Starks. It is, but it's not showing. Okay, so first goes to Major Westeros House, goes to House Stark. So their sigil is a running grey direwolf on an icy white field. So winter is coming. House Lannister, it's a roaring golden lion on a crimson, field. Haemyror, unofficial Lannister always pays his rate. That's okay, yeah. Haemyror. House Targaryen, a red three-headed dragons on a backfield, fire and blood. Okay. House Baratheon, a crowned black stack on a golden field. Ours is the Fury. Greyjoy is goes to We Do Not Sow, a golden kraken on a black field. House Tyrell, a golden rose on a green field, so growing strong. House Martell, a red sun pierced by a golden spear, unbent, unbowed, unbroken. A soaring House Aaron, a soaring white falcon against the moon, as high as honor. House Study, a silver, okay, family, honor and duty. Okay, just now let's see. This is House Stark, House Tully, House Stark, House Clegane, House Onward, okay, all those important houses. Ah, fuck, man. Okay, so now let's go to the full story of it, right? And let's do some reactions about. Let's study together. Let's learn together, because I've read the summary of it, but I don't know exactly in what what order it happened. But I've seen the entire series. Series does not necessarily go together with the book's version. So yeah. And in between I'll stop it, because if I continue with watching 3 hours, then I might get a YouTube strike. So I have to add some value in it, right? So I have to stop in between and give my opinion and some value addition to it. Otherwise, the entire thing will be copyrighted.
The world of Ice and Fire is one of the most beloved fantasy universes, and for a good reason. Realistic events, full of historical parallels, and unmatched levels of world building with detailed battles and wars. Welcome to the Wizards and Warriors channel. Allow us to present the story masterfully created by George R.R. Martin, as we hopefully look forward to the release of The Winds of Winter. Here is the story of the Song of Ice and Fire so far. As we see the grand adventures of the many heroes unfold, you might be inspired to conjure up an adventure yourself on the tabletop, and for that we recommend the sponsor of this video, Chepeku. Chepeku will provide you with a selection of over 4,000 beautiful maps. The invasion of Madness and greatness are two sides of the same coin. Every time a new Targaryen is born, the gods toss the coin in the air, and the world holds its breath to see.
This is a famous saying, right? It's like when the Targaryen, right? Madness and greatness are two sides of the same coin, and every time a Targaryen is born, the god tosses the coin in the air, and the world holds its breath.
How it will land. Barristan Selmy, A Storm of Swords, Chapter 71. Upon the death of Jaehaerys II in 262 AC, Aerys II Targaryen inherited the throne. His reign began with some promise, as many of the courtiers of his father were replaced by younger men of ambition, among them his childhood friend Tywin Lannister as Hand of the King. Aerys was proudly announcing that he would become the greatest ruler in the history of the kingdom, but even at this early period, his grip on sanity was tenuous. The invasion of Braavos following a dispute with the Iron Bank, and plans to build a new wall hundreds of miles beyond the existing wall in order to expand the kingdom, did not have any basis in reality, and were soon abandoned. Despite this, Westeros prospered, and it was often said that it was due to Tywin, sparking the jealousy of Aerys. Their relationship was also damaged when Aerys bemoaned that the king's right of the first night had been abolished during Tywin's marriage, and the latter would never forgive that. Soon, the king started ignoring the impassioned pleas of his hand,
I think this
acting...
is a bit later version of it, okay? I'll just go give the summary of it. Just wait, where's the summary? Okay, that's very long. Okay, even this one is quite long. So book 1 and 2, book twice, just no. I want a proper summary of it. So Game of Thrones. Rise and the Fall of the Targaryen, House of the Dragon, lore document we know.
मार्टिन ने लिखे हुए गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स
The complete history of themselves. Okay, just wait. Okay, Winds of Winter. Winds of Winter summary. Okay. Because the planned 6th novel in Joy Martin, A Song of Violence Against this one, so it'll focus on the aftermath of the, it will focus on aftermath of the Dance with the Dragons, opening with the 2 major battle, dealing with the advancing threat of the others from the far north, and opening battle, or stated the book will start with the battle in the ice in the north and the battle of the slave with this one story, the threat from the north, the story will move further, is it? Is Winds of Winter before or after Robert's rebellion? I don't know, man. I think it should be before, right? That is, the Winds of the takes place long after Robert's rebellion. This is the historic war that happened roughly 15 to 17 years before the very first book of Game of Thrones begins. It is the event where the Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark overthrew the Mad Kings, Aerys Targaryen. The Winters of the Wind. This is the upcoming 6th book in the main series. It continues Jon Snow, Targaryen, Tyrion, and nearly 2 decades after Robert Rebellion ends. Yeah. I don't get it, just wait. The Winds of Winter. Summary. What happens? Should complete book summary. However, Joanna has shared explicit plot details and released several sample of this one. The book is confirmed to open with 2 massive concurrent battles that were cut from the previous novels, following the rapid escalation of the White Walkers' invasions based on the battle in the Ice North Coast. Stannis' army is known as the Creators. Theon's fate. Theon Greyjoy is held captive with the Stannis, who is under the intense pressure on the northern to execute him for his alleged crime against the Starks. The Bolton conflict rose, and so I think this is the entire different version of it, right? So because in Game of Thrones everything is different. With Theon Greyjoy, right? So he was killed, by the White Walkers. So yeah, just wait. But then the complete story of the Winds of Winter, because I told you this story is not completed, right? George R. R. Martin, he has not completed the entire stories of the Game of Thrones, but the maker has to go with some stories, so that's why they had to. So yeah, they complete history of Westeros, the Dawn Age, the entire history of Westeros, 3 hours of Game of Thrones lore. Let's see.
Westeros has ended before, many times. It has burned, drowned, or a fish could send his sight roaming. First men who needed to cross had already crossed.
The world of Westeros didn't just start with the
Okay, so I think this one.
The world of Westeros didn't just start with the execution of Ned Stark or the birth of Daenerys Targaryen. Oh no, there are over 12,000 years of history packed into this world. So today we are going to go through those thousands of years of story and history in chronological order and show you exactly how George R. R. Martin perfectly connected everything together. We will break down ancient prophecies and massive political plots that seamlessly tie into the shows you know and love. So here is the complete timeline of the Game of Thrones
So this is the timeline. So 12,000 BC. Okay.
Entire universe. The world before dragons. Long before the Iron Throne was ever forged, and thousands of years before the first Targaryen ever flew over Westeros, the Game of Thrones world was a very different place. There were no kings, no massive castles, and no great houses fighting for power. Instead, the continent belonged to magic. 12,000 years before Daenerys Targaryen, during an era known as the Dawn Age, Westeros was home to 2 main groups. First, there were the Children of the Forest. These were small and beautiful creatures who could use and control magic. They worshipped the gods of nature.
So this is how the Night Kings, right? They are formed. The people who becomes alive even after dying,
which are now called the Old Gods.
According to legend, it was
So that's why. Okay, so that's why when swearing an oath by any person from that era, they say that I swear to the old and the new gods, right? So they use it both, the old and the new god.
Carved faces in the great white trunks of the majestic rearwoods. Their deep-cut eyes were red with sap and ever watchful.
Alongside them were the Giants, who were massive beings that rode mammoths and mostly kept to themselves. For countless centuries, these non-human races lived in peace, but everything changed when the first humans arrived. Around 12,000 years ago, a group of humans called the First Men crossed a land bridge from the eastern continent of Essos called the Arm of Dawn. They brought bronze weapons and started cutting down the sacred weirwood trees to make room for their farms and villages. This completely outraged the Children of the Forest, and it started a brutal, bloody war that lasted for generations. The children used their powerful magic to fight back, even shattering the land bridge so no more humans could cross, which created the broken islands we now know as the Stepstones. But it was too late, and the first men on the continent were beginning to overpower them. In a last-ditch effort, the children used a piece of cursed dragon glass to turn one of the first men into a monster that would help them fight the
So that's why, okay, so later what happened is that the question comes like, how do you kill those people who are dead, right? Okay, then comes living, so they are not known as the White Walkers. So they can only be killed with the help of this dragon glass.
The children used a piece of cursed dragon glass to turn one of the first men into a monster that would help them fight the invaders. Their monster would later come to be known.
So this is the Night King. This is the King of the Night.
Night King.
It was you. You made the White Walkers.
We were at war.
However, the Children of the Forest didn't deploy the first White Walkers, as both sides realized that if they kept fighting, they would destroy each other. So their leaders met on an island called the Isle of Faces and signed a peace treaty known as the Pact. The first men promised to stop cutting down the weirwood trees, and they even adopted the old gods as their own religion. They agreed to share the land, and for a long time, it actually worked.
The first men would be granted dominion over the coastland, the mountains, the high plains and the bogs, but the deep forest would forever belong to the children. And no weirwood tree would ever again fall to man's axe.
This peace lasted for thousands of years, but then came one of the darkest periods in the history of Westeros. The White Walkers created by the Children of the Forest turned on their creators and brought a terrible, freezing winter that lasted for an entire generation. This era was known as the Long Night. The White Walkers invaded from the coldest parts of the north and brought an army of the dead. And that slaughtered everyone in its path, almost wiping out all life in Westeros.
Fear is for the winter, when the snows fall 100 feet deep. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides for years.
The first men and the Children of the Forest decided to team up once again in order to survive. Among the first men was a hero who rose to fight against the darkness. While most details of this man are unknown, legends call him Azor Ahai. Azor Ahai needed to craft a sword to fight against the White Walkers, so he worked in a temple for 30 days to make it. However, when he went to temper the sword in water, it broke over and over again. Azor understood the sword demanded sacrifice in order to be forged. So he drove his final untempered sword through his wife's heart and combined his wife's soul with it to create Lightbringer. Nissa Nissa, bare your breast, and know that I love you best of all that is in this world. Azor Ahai led a troop of men to fight against the White Walkers in a massive conflict called the Battle for the Dawn. They finally managed to push the White Walkers back into the cold, and with the magic of the children, it was prophesied that Azor Ahai would be reborn again when the threat of the Long Night came back and lead humans to victory once more. While this prophecy was mostly a legend, it became a central part of the religion of the Red Priestess. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai...
Okay, so when the red star bleeds, so this one, right? This is the dire wolf of Jon Snow. He is known as a ghost. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst smoke and salt to what dragon out of stone? Melisandre to Jon Snow. Okay, so Jon Snow. This is considered as Jon Snow. Melisandre. She's a witch, man. Melisandre, she's a witch. But a good witch. Depends, because I think she led to the demise of the Stannis Baratheon. That is the younger brother of Robert Baratheon, because she was the advisor to that person, which made him to sacrifice her daughter to win the war against Ramsay Bolton.
Shall be born again as smoke and salt to wake dragons out. After the Battle of the Long Night, the Children of the Forest and Brandon the Builder built the wall to keep the White Walkers away.
The hero of the Stabled Age was Bran the Builder. Bran raised the wall and built the stronghold of Winterfell.
So that's why it's called Bran the Builder, because he was the person, I think, who built the entire, the wall which separated the north, south with the entire thing with the upper north, the real north. And later, I think Bran the storyteller, Bran the Broke, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so that person, he takes the name from that person, Brandon.
Establishing House Stark and reigning as the first king in the north.
This massive barrier of solid ice and magic stretched all the way across the northern border of the continent. Brandon also created Night's Watch, a brotherhood of men sworn to guard the realm of the living, and peace was once again established in Westeros. But almost 6,000 years later, a new group of humans called the Andals crossed the Narrow Sea in massive ships. Unlike the first men, the Andals had advanced steel weapons and brought a completely new religion to Westeros, called the Faith of the Seven. They were determined to conquer the land and spread their faith by force.
Leading the Children of the Forest wherever they could find them, burning out their weirwood groves, hacking away at the faces of the old gods, and spreading their own religion through the land.
The Andals conquered almost the entire southern half of the continent, while killing the Children of the Forest that lived there. They completely took over the lands and replaced the old ways. The only place they couldn't conquer was the north. The first men who lived there used their deadly, toxic swamps of the neck as a choke point and successfully fought off the Andal armies. This is exactly why the Starks and the northern houses still worship the old gods today, while the rest of the south now prays to the Seven. While Westeros was busy dividing itself into different kingdoms and fighting constant wars, a completely different kind of power was rising over in Essos.
Thousands of years ago, while the rest of men prayed to gods, the Valyrians became them.
A group of shepherds stumbled upon dragons living inside a massive chain of volcanoes called the 14 Flames. They used magic to tame these massive beasts, and with the power of dragons, they built the Valyrian Freehold.
In time, the Valyrians were able to tame the beasts. Harnessing their immense power, they established a city of wonder, unlike any before or since.
For thousands of years, Valyria was the greatest empire the world had ever seen. They had massive cities filled with magic, and no one could stand against them because of their dragons.
It was a city and an empire built to last until the end of time.
But then, without any warning, it all came crashing down. An apocalyptic event known as the Doom of Valyria caused every single volcano in the empire to erupt simultaneously. The land shattered, the oceans boiled, and the greatest city in the world was burned completely to ashes in a single day. Almost all the dragons and their riders were wiped.
Yeah, I think even the Targaryen, right? They were from that Valyria thing, and even in Valyria, there are a lot of houses. Valoron included, and there's a Targaryens. So the Valeria, I think, was the real people where they got the dragon and all those things. And then later, because of that, when the volcano, right, it erupted, the entire house was destroyed, and then I think only the Targaryens were left, and then they got to get the privilege of having a dragon.
Wiped out in an instant, leaving behind an uninhabitable area called the Smoking Sea.
In hours, the greatest city in history became history.
But just before the doom happened, a minor family of dragon lords fled Valyria because Daenerys the Dreamer had a prophetic vision of destruction. They fled and settled on a tiny rocky island off the coast of Westeros called Dragonstone. This family was the Targaryens.
Legends claim that his daughter foresaw the destruction of the city in a dream. More likely, Aegon met with some mishap at court and chose exile.
Just wait, okay. Dragonstone. Dragonstone. Okay, this is the Dragonstone.
Of execution.
And while the seven kingdoms of Westeros spent centuries fighting each other with steel and shields, they were completely unprepared for the threat that was about to fly over the narrow sea. Aegon's conquest. 100 years after the doom of Valyria wiped out their homeland, the Targaryens were living on the island of Dragonstone and preserving their Valyrian ancestry through dragon breeding and incestuous marriages. For generations, they lived peacefully until Aegon.
So Targaryens are known for marrying their cousin, not just a cousin, their siblings, the brother, sister, because they don't want to dilute their power.
Targaryen looked westward until the land was ready to be conquered.
He and his sisters, Rhaenys and Visenya, flew over the great continent, a personal map of the Seven Kingdoms. Then ruled by...
This is I think, the very brief version of the entire thing, right, covered. Because if you go to the Blood and Fire, House of Dragons, or something, it's like a much deeper.
Seven squabbling families.
However, some say this conquest was not born of ambition or madness, but rather a prophetic dream. In the dream, Aegon saw the return of the White Walkers and an endless night that would consume the entire world. This dream was the first prophecy in the history of Game of Thrones, which was later passed down from kings to their heirs, called A Song of Ice and Fire.
King or queen, strong enough to unite the realm against the cold and the dark. Aegon called his dream the Song of Ice and Fire. This secret, it's been passed from king to heir since Aegon's time. Now you must promise to carry it.
At that time, Westeros was a complete mess, and the continent was divided into seven kingdoms that spent their time fighting amongst each other. But Aegon was about to change that by uniting the kingdoms under one king.
The Seven Kingdoms made Westeros, a realm that wasn't yet a realm, ruled by great families who didn't know what greatness was. Aegon would teach them.
That time, he didn't have a massive army to pull this off, but what he did have were his two sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys, and 3 fully grown dragons. Visenya rode Vhagar, Rhaenys rode Meraxes, and Aegon rode Balerion the Black Dread, the only surviving beast that had seen Valyria before its doom. They began their conquest after landing at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush with a small force and sent out a simple and clear message to all the rulers of Westeros.
As his army prepared to sail, ravens flew to every great lord of the Seven Kingdoms. All bore the same message. Those who bent the knee would keep their lands and titles. Those who took up arms against him would be thrown down, humbled, and destroyed.
When Aegon approached the Riverlands, the lords revolted against their Lord Paramount and joined his army. But the first real test came at the castle of Harrenhal. King Harren the Black had just finished building Harrenhal, and it was credited as the largest and strongest castle in the history of the known world. Its walls were so high that any attack from the land was impossible.
Harrenhal was built to withstand an attack from the land 300 years after his death.
But when Aegon arrived outside its gates, Harren refused to surrender, and instead locked himself inside his massive fortress, believing that the thick stone walls could protect him from anything.
Yield now, and you may remain as Lord of the Iron Islands. Yield now, and your sons will live to rule after you. You see my army outside your walls. You see my dragons. When the sun sets, your line shall end.
That was one hell of a speech, and when night fell, Aegon flew Balerion high up into the clouds, and dove straight down.
So Balerion is the biggest dragon in history, and that one, in the House of Dragons, the Balerion is already dead, because that's like a way before, and that, and during the House of Dragons, the biggest one is with the Aemon Targaryen, one person with one eye, Aemon Targaryen, and that one is Vhagar, which is huge as compared to other dragons.
On towards the castle and unleashed blood.
And the dragon is, I think, close to 180 to 90 years old.
Black dragon fire, so unimaginably hot that it actually melted the stone. Harren and his entire family were roasted alive inside their invincible fortress. In a single night, Aegon proved to the entire world that regular castles were completely useless against dragons and their dragon fire. While Aegon was conquering Harrenhal, Orys Baratheon, the bastard brother of Aegon, along with Rhaenys Targaryen and her dragon Meraxes, rode south to secure the Stormlands.
As the two armies approached, a gale which would give the battle its name, the Last Storm.
The king of Stormlands was Argilac, and he marched out to lead the army in a battle that would later be known as the Last Storm. Despite having double the number of knights and bannermen, Argilac lost the battle, and now Aegon had secured 2 of the 7 kingdoms. As news of Harrenhal and Storm's End spread throughout the other kingdoms, King Mern of the Reach and King Loren of the Westerlands decided to join forces and create the largest army Westeros had ever seen.
They had the mightiest army in history, a so-called Iron Fist.
They marched out onto the plains with 55,000 men to crush the Targaryen invaders. Aegon only had about 10,000 men, so if this were a normal battle, he would have been slaughtered. But this wasn't a normal battle. For the first and only time during the entire conquest, Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys unleashed all 3 of their dragons at the same time. The dry grass of the battlefield instantly caught alight, trapping the massive army in a terrifying inferno. Over 4,000 men were burned alive, including Mern and his entire family line. King Loren barely managed to survive, and the very next day, he threw down his sword and bent the knee. Aegon declared him to be Lord of Castle Rock and Warden of the West.
Why wouldn't he? A Lannister always pays his debts, and now we owed our lives to the crown. That was worth centuries of subservience, at least.
This legendary slaughter became known forever as the Field of Fire. Up in the north, Torrhen Stark heard about what happened to the Lannisters and the Gardeners. He called his northern banners and marched a massive army of his own south to the Trident to meet Aegon. But when he finally arrived and saw the massive Targaryen host, along with all 3 dragons roaring in the sky, he realized something very important. If he fought, his men would all just burn like all the others. In one of the smartest and most selfless moves in Westerosi history, Torrhen chose to lay down his ancient, 1,000-year-old crown. He peacefully bent the knee to Aegon, giving up his kingship so his people could live. From that day on, he was remembered with deep respect as the king who knelt.
The swords that Aegon took from them were not twisted, burnt, or mangled.
Even the conquest of the Vale was a swift victory for Aegon, as Visenya flew over the defences of the fortresses and landed in the courtyard where the heir of the castle found her. As the regent of the Vale, Shara Arryn, ran outside and saw her son happily playing on Visenya's knee and urging her to take him on a flight on the dragon, without any choice left, Shara allowed her son to ride around the Vale with said dragon rider and handed her crown over to Visenya. Understandable.
Oh, no, I take it to the sky as a king. His little boy would.
By this point, almost the entire continent belonged to Aegon, but there was one kingdom that simply refused to submit: Dorne. This desert kingdom in the far south was ruled by an old blind woman named Merya Martell, the Princess of Dorne. When Rhaenys flew down to demand her surrender, Merya stood her ground.
The princess told the queen that the Targaryens weren't wanted in Dorne, and no Martell would ever bow, bend, or break no matter how badly they burn.
And the Dornish proved it. Instead of fighting large open battles where the dragons could easily destroy them, they used brutal guerrilla tactics and asymmetric warfare. They hid in the mountains, struck fast, and disappeared back into the harsh desert before the dragons could even arrive. The war in Dorne dragged on for years and turned incredibly bloody. The worst moment came at a castle called Hellholt. During an attack, a lucky shot from a massive scorpion bolt hit Rhaenys' dragon, Meraxes, straight in the eye. The dragon crashed to the ground, taking Rhaenys down with her.
House Martell remained unbroken, unlike the unfortunate Rhaenys.
The death of his favourite wife drove Aegon into an absolute blind rage. He and Visenya spent the next 2 years burning every single Dornish castle they could find, over and over in a period known as the Dragon's Wrath. But the Dornish still refused to give up. Eventually, the old princess passed away, and her children sued for peace. However, Dorne remained an independent kingdom for a while. With the conquest officially over, Aegon needed a seat of power that truly represented his new empire. He had gathered thousands of swords from every single lord who fought against him, and used the black fire of Valyrian the Dread to weld all those blades together into a towering, jagged seat that became the iconic Iron Throne, a king.
So that's how the Iron Throne, right? That entire seat became, where there's thousands of swords.
Should never sit easy. Aegon.
The king should never sit easy, Aegon.
To his armorers. Aegon had united 6 of the 7 kingdoms through sheer force, fire, and blood, creating a massive dynasty out of nothing. The Maesters rewrote the timelines of history with BC as before conquest, and AC as after the conquest of
Okay,
Aegon.
so it's not BC, that means before Christ. It's AC after, after Christ. No, it's AC means after conquered, and BC was before.
Truly showing the impact he left. The Maesters of the Citadel, who keep the histories of Westeros, have used Aegon's conquest as their touchstone for the past 300 years. The world of Ice and Fire, the Reign of Dragon.
Yeah, so that's the world of Ice, the Song of Ice and Fire.
The conquest. But while Aegon the Conqueror had the strength of mind and the dragons to hold this massive new empire together, his sons are about to find out that keeping the Iron Throne was much, much harder than taking it. The early Dragon Kings. When Aegon the Conqueror died 37 years after his conquest, he left a massive, newly forged empire to his eldest son, Aenys Targaryen. But ruling a kingdom...
Okay, so forged empire to his eldest sons, Aenys Targaryen, okay?
Very different from conquering one, and Aenys was absolutely nothing like his father.
Nobles learned to keep their eyes down, but the gods weren't used to sharing the heavens.
When Aenys rose to power, he was a weak ruler, and rebellions broke out throughout the 7 kingdoms. While Aenys was able to suppress these with the help of his brother Maegor, he was easily swayed by others indecisively.
Okay, just wait. I mean, I don't want to divert, but yeah. What are the 7 kingdoms? What are the 7 kingdoms? 7 kingdoms are... So yeah, so the 7 kingdoms are this all. The North, House Stark. Okay, so North, House Stark, and then comes House Arryn, the Vale, House Arryn, the Vale, and comes House Targaryens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. House Gardener. So just wait. The North ruled by the House Stark from the Winterfell. The Vale ruled by House Arryn. The Mountain Vale from the Eyrie. House Vale, okay. And then the Island. The Isles in the rivers, they ruled by the House Horse before being split into the Iron Islands and Riverlands. Okay, so this one becomes Riverland. Kingdom of the Isles and River, okay. Harrenhal, okay. The kingdom of this one's okay. The Reach. And where was it? The Isle, the Rock ruled by the House Lannister, known as the Westerlands. The Reach ruled by the House Gardeners and later by the House Tyrells. The Stormlands ruled by the House Durrandon, later House Baratheon, Donny ruled by House Moyle, which are the realm through the marriage. Okay, so yeah, before it was known as Sixth Kingdom, which later joined the realm through the marriage. Okay, so 1, Dawn, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The North, the Vale, the Isle and the River, the Rock, the Reach, the Storms, the reality of the 9 regions. Okay, so the House Stark. The biggest is, the House Stark, man. Okay, so House Avenged, House Horst, Harrenhal, Kingdom of the Isle and River, Dragonstones, Kingdom of the Rock, House Lannister, Castle Rock, Kingdom of the Rock, the Reach, the Hardiness, High Garden, House, okay, Storm, My Kingdom, okay.
You are a fool and a weakling, nephew. Do you think any man would ever dare to speak so to your father, Visenya Targaryen, to Aenys? However, the biggest problem Aenys faced during his reign was the Faith of the Seven. The Targaryens used to practice incest to keep their bloodline pure, but the Faith of the Seven considered this a massive sin. And when Maegor decided to take up another wife, just like his father, Faith revolted.
When Aegon died, the High Septon led the Faith and its army in revolt, claiming that the Valyrian tradition of wedding brother to sister was an abomination in the eyes of the Seven, though no one could explain where the divine mother and father had come from.
Thousands of warriors known as the Poor Fellows and the Warriors' Sons took up arms against the crown and occupied the massive Sept of Remembrance in King's Landing. Aenys was so stressed and terrified by the rebellion that he fled the city and later died of a sudden illness, leaving the realm in utter chaos.
King fled to Dragonstone, where he soon died of cramps.
Shortly after Aenys died, Maegor was crowned the king on Dragonstone. The Iron Throne will go to the man who has the strength to seize it. After his coronation, Maegor flew to King's Landing on Valyrian and planted his banner on Visenya's Hill to rally men to his side. The head of the Faith militant opposed it and demanded a trial of the Seven to settle this matter. This was the first time a trial of the Seven was held.
7 men against 7 men. Makes for a good show, I guess. But any man who's been in battle knows that the more men involved, the less skill needed.
Maegor had no knights of the King's Guard, but the common folk of King's Landing stood up and fought beside him during the trial. However, Maegor was the only one who survived the trial and later fell into a coma. He was treated by Tiana of the Tower, and after 30 days, he woke up from the coma and flew straight to the Sept to burn hundreds of the Faith militant. For the next several years, Maegor waged a ruthless, bloody war against the religious rebels and anyone else who questioned his rule. He put bounties on the heads of the holy warriors, paying a gold bragger for every scalp brought to him.
My ancestor Maegor the Wise, or Maegor the Cruel, as men sly, soon returned to the Septs.
He built the Red Keep, complete with massive walls, deep dungeons, and a completely secret network of hidden
build the Red Keep.
tunnels and passageway. When the castle was finally completed, Maegor threw a massive 3-day feast for all the builders, masons, and tunnel diggers to celebrate their hard work. But as soon as the feast was over, he had every single one of them slaughtered, so the secret to the Red Keep would die.
So the secret of the Red Keep.
With them. Aegon the Conqueror had commanded it be built. His son Maegor the Cruel had seen it completed. Afterward, he had taken the heads of every stonemason, woodworker, and builder who had laboured on it. A Game of Thrones, Chapter 18, Catelyn 4. Because of his endless bloodshed and tyranny, the entire realm eventually turned against him, and even his own family abandoned him. Realizing he had completely lost the kingdom, Maegor the Cruel was found dead the very next morning, sitting on the Iron Throne. His wrists had been slashed, and his neck was impaled on one of the jagged swords of the throne itself. To this day, no one knows if his own guards murdered him or if the Iron Throne itself finally rejected him.
Aegon's own son, Maegor the Cruel, was killed by the very Iron Throne his father had forged, if you believe the tales.
With the tyrant dead, the crown passed to Aenys' last surviving son, a young man named Jaehaerys. No one expected much from a boy whose family had nearly destroyed the realm.
I think he was a good
But
king.
Jaehaerys would go on to become the greatest king the Seven Kingdoms had ever seen.
That's what I'm saying. Greatest king of the Seven Kingdoms.
Aegon the Dragon and his sisters conquered the Seven Kingdoms, 6 of them at least. But it was Jaehaerys the Conciliator who truly made them one. Writings of Umbert. Jaehaerys ruled for...
I think his son is the Viserys II, if I'm not wrong, who is the father who becomes, who later, gives birth to Rhaenyra Targaryen and later again marries Alicent Hightower and have Aemon Targaryen, Helena, all the House of Dragons character.
For over 50 years, and brought a golden age of peace and prosperity to Westeros. Instead of fighting the Faith militant with fire and blood, he used diplomacy. He offered them a
I get confused, man. What is the name? Okay, so his name was Aegon the Dragonstone and his sister conquered 7. Okay, Jaehaerys.
His sisters conquered the Seven Kingdoms, 6 of them at least. But it was Jaehaerys the Conciliator who truly made them one. Writings of Umbert. Jaehaerys ruled for over 50 years and brought a golden age of peace and prosperity to Westeros. Instead of fighting the Faith militant with fire and blood, he used diplomacy. He offered them a complete pardon for their rebellion as long as they put down their swords. And he promised that the Iron Throne would always be the religion. To solve the issue of Targaryen incest, he sent speakers all over the continent to preach the doctrine of exceptionalism, basically convincing the people that Targaryens were close to gods than men because they rode dragons. So regular laws just didn't apply. Those of Valyrian descent were not like other men. Targaryens had purple.
That's convenient. That the normal rules are not applicable to a Targaryen because they are the dragon riders, so that means they are closer to the gods, so they are high people, superior people, so the normal laws are not applicable. So that means the normal people of not having an incestuous, that means incest, marrying your own sister, cousins, that's not applicable to them.
Eyes and hair of gold and silver. They ruled the sky on dragons. The doctrines of the faith and the prohibitions against incest did not apply to them, and they did not get sick. Words of Gildain. Alongside his sister wife, Queen Alysanne, Jaehaerys completely transformed the continent. He built the massive King's Road to connect the north to the south, unified the chaotic laws of the land, and filled the royal treasury with gold. His reign was so
What I've
incredibly...
seen is that in Game of Thrones, right, the entire the set, the castle, the road, everything is being built from a very, very long time. That means 300-400s year before, right? So in House of Targaryen and all, when I saw the House of Dragon, most of the castles were being built from that time only. And even in Game of Thrones, that's after like 200 to 300 years. There's no development as such. So I want to ask what the kings and the queens were doing at that time, the lords and the ladies. What were they doing? They were not building anything.
To be stable, the people simply called him the Old King. But outliving all your enemies also means outliving your own children. Jaehaerys was forced to call a massive council to choose who would wear the crown next. He officially passed the throne to his grandson Viserys, leaving him a kingdom at the absolute peak of wealth and power.
Okay, his son. Yeah, this is his son, Viserys.
Would the Great
Who
Council
also,
prevent a war?
I think, he was also not bad, right? He's fine.
His
But
country could tear down
yeah,
the house.
and he's a good person. But the problem comes when he's not able to communicate. Or okay, I'm not exactly sure about the book version, but in the the series versions, he promised the I mean, so when a king, is at certain age, then he has to ensure that his heir is someone, right? So they have to formally announce that this is my heir. So he announces first heir, the Rhaenyra Targaryens, but in secretly, he also announces later before dying to his wife that no, she's not going to be the heir, but the heir is going to be the Aegon Targaryen. So because of that, entire fight happens. If he had made it clear, which person or which child is going to be the real heir, then I think there wouldn't have been any House of Dragons also.
Of the dragon.
The Dance of the Dragons. When King Viserys was crowned king, he inherited a realm at the absolute peak of its power. The Targaryen dynasty had never been richer.
That is the Rhaenyra Targaryen.
Skies over King's Landing were filled with more dragons than ever before, but Viserys had one major problem. He had no male heir.
Is this the last time?
Yeah.
Viserys, I've lost one babe in the cradle, and 2 stillbirths and 2 pregnancies ended well before their time. If I failed you in that, I am, but I've warned all the dead children like you.
But Viserys was desperate to have a male heir. So desperate that he killed his wife in order to have one.
I mean, it's not as simple as that, right? So it's like you can either save the child or you can save the mother. So yeah, I mean, or you lose both. That was the conditions. And later he gets a boy, and but the boy dies within few days.
However, the child died soon after being born, and Viserys was overcome with grief and guilt over his desperation to have a son. This led him to make his own child, Princess Rhaenyra, his rightful successor, and made all the Lords of Westeros swear an oath of loyalty to her.
I, Viserys Targaryen, first of his name.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The title, the Viserys Targaryen, is first of his name.
Lord of the Seven Kingdoms.
Lord of the Seven Kingdoms.
And protector of the realm. Princess of
the Dragonstone.
And heir to the Iron Throne.
While Viserys partially blamed Rhaenyra, his heir, due to the guilt he felt over killing his wife's son, it was also because of Aegon's prophecy. Aegon the Conqueror foretold that a person from his lineage would stop the Long Night, and this prophecy was cemented into his Valyrian dagger. When Viserys was named heir, Jaehaerys told him of this prophecy, and as Rhaenyra was his only child, he passed it down to her to ensure it would continue.
And if the world of men is to survive, a Targaryen must be seated on the Iron Throne.
Years later, Viserys married Alicent Hightower, and she gave him a healthy son named Aegon. Before her marriage, Alicent and Rhaenyra were good friends.
She gave Aegon, Aemond, Helena.
But they later began to hate one another, which eventually led to Alicent's secret.
And Daemon also. Just wait, okay, yeah, Daemon, right? Alicent Hightower. Children. I think 4 children. Aegon II, Helena, Aemond, and Darion. Right.
Quickly planning to usurp Rhaenyra's throne.
If Rhaenyra comes into power, your very life could be forfeit. Aemond's as well. She can move to cut off any challenge to her succession.
By all the traditional laws of Westeros, a firstborn son would inherit the throne over an older daughter. However, still burdened by the guilt of his wife, Viserys refused to change his mind and kept Rhaenyra as the heir.
I'm going to Beth Emma.
Shall I see after Queen Alicent, Your Grace?
Understanding the gravity of her situation, Rhaenyra chose to marry her uncle Daemon Targaryen after staging the death of her first husband, Laenor Valyrian. Before King Viserys passed away, he forced Rhaenyra and Alicent to settle their dispute with one another. But during his final moments, he spoke of Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy to Alicent. Alicent was unaware of the prophecy and assumed her husband had changed his mind and declared her son to be the next heir.
Prince Aegon.
To unite the realm against the cold. It's the dark.
After King Viserys died, Alicent Hightower and her father, Otto Hightower, usurped Rhaenyra's throne and appointed...
So Otto Hightower that time was the hand of the king. That means the right hand of the king. If he's absent, he's going to make all the big decisions.
Aegon as king. Those who supported Queen Alicent and her son became known as the Greens, while those who stayed loyal to Princess Rhaenyra became known as the Blacks. Rhaenyra, who was living on Dragonstone, was not aware of her father's death. And when the
So yeah, there was a war between the Blacks and the Greens. So the Blacks were those people who are supporting the eldest daughter of Viserys Targaryen, that is the Rhaenyra Targaryens, and the Greens are those who are supporting Aegon Targaryen, that is the mother Alicent Hightower, his brothers, and yeah, all the Hightowers.
News finally reached her. The shock and rage caused her to go into a traumatic early labor, resulting in a stillborn child. She blamed the Greens for the death of her baby and her father's stolen crown, and immediately declared herself the true queen of Westeros.
Go then, my prince. You win 20s in no time. I don't give a shit about 20s. Nephews?
As both sides started sending out messengers on dragons to secure alliances with the major houses of Westeros, Rhaenyra sent her young son, Prince Viserys, to Storm's End to deliver a message. But when he arrived, he found that his uncle, Prince Aemond Targaryen, had already turned the Baratheons for King Aegon.
So you come with empty hands. Go home, pup, and tell your mother that the Lord of Storm's End is not some dog that she can whistle up at need to set against her foes.
Prince Aemond had always had a troublesome relationship with Rhaenyra's children, especially since he lost an eye because of them when he claimed Vhagar, the largest, oldest, and most terrifying dragon in the world. As Lucerys tried to fly away from Storm's End, Aemon chased him down so he could intimidate and scare him during a massive thunderstorm over Shipbreaker Bay.
I think, yeah, it was a mistake. It was a mistake in a sense that, first Aemon, right? Aemon, he wants to just intimidate the other person, that is the son of the, Rhaenyra Targaryens, and while that were doing, the Rhaenyra Targaryen's son, I think Jaehaerys, his dragon is very small as compared to the Vhagar. So the dragon got nervous and all, and then he fired. He fired to the Vhagar, and then Aemon was not able to control his dragon, and then Vhagar just killed.
But even Targaryens do not have complete mastery over their dragons, and as the situation with Aemon and Lucerys intensified, both riders...
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys is the elder son of the Rhaenyra Targaryen, so it's Lucerys.
Lost control of their dragons. Arrax attacked Vhagar, causing Aemon to lose control of...
Arrax, the dragon, the dragon name of the Lucerys dragon.
The beast, and it brutally ripped apart Lucerys and his dragon. This was the first major bloodshed in the conflict. It was no longer a political dispute. It was a brutal war of fire and blood that history would remember as the Dance of the Dragons. It was a war marked by stealth, murder, and betrayal as well. A war fought in shadows and stairwells, council chambers and castle yards, with knives and lies and poison. Writings of Gyldayn. After Lucerys' death, Rhaenyra was stricken with grief, and in her absence, Daemon Targaryen, her husband and uncle, planned to send 2 assassins to murder Aemon Targaryen in the Red Keep.
We would find and slay the Prince Aemon Targaryen. He has silver hair and one eye. Should be easy enough to find.
The assassins were a rat catcher and a former king's guard, but they were nameless, and history knows them as Blood and Cheese. These assassins were unable to find Aemon Targaryen, but they couldn't go back empty-handed, so instead they entered Queen Helena's room and murdered Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen.
That's no son.
After the assassination of Jaehaerys, the war quickly escalated into complete chaos, and proved just how devastating dragons could be when they fought each other. The Green Armies moved throughout Westeros and demanded loyalty of the lords to Aegon. As they moved towards Rook's Rest, Rhaenyra sent Princess Rhaenys on her dragon, Meleys, to defend the castle.
You must send me.
So Meleys is the... actually, if you see the Jaehaerys, right, the elder daughter is Rhaenys, but Viserys got the... I don't know. Just wait, let me see. Who's older? Viserys Targaryen. Okay. I'm sorry, Rhaenyra. Targaryen. It's Rhaenyra Targaryens. Rhaenyra Targaryen, right? Okay, I want to see his father. Spouse Daemon Targaryen, Laenor Targaryen, stand. Okay, Viserys the second. Okay, first Viserys the first, right? So I want to see his sibling. Spouse sibling is to Daemon Targaryen. Alicent Hightower. Relation to Rhaenyra. Assuming this one refers to Rhaenyra Targaryen, so this one is either the. Okay, just wait. Aemon Targaryen, okay, Alicent Hightower. Daemon Targaryen. Okay, so okay. So I thought they were the actual brothers. No, it's not the actual brothers. So I was talking about this one, Rhaenys Targaryen. Okay, so Viserys Targaryen and Rhaenys Targaryen. Corlys, okay, Valarons, okay, they have Laenor Targaryen, okay, and then they have Rhea Royce is equals to they have, okay, Marist, okay, then Aegon's. It's very complicated. It's their son. Okay, Lyanna Targaryen still,
Your Grace. Meleys is your largest dragon and no stranger to battle.
Collis Valero. Okay, so this is the person who's with the white. Rhaenys, okay, Targaryen. Again, Jaehaerys, okay, Jaehaerys Targaryen, Lucerys Targaryen, Joffrey, Valero. Okay, Helena, okay, done.
Rhaenys and Melies flew for Rook's Rest and arrived just as the Green Army was making progress in their assault on Staunton's castle. Melies devastated the Green Army with her dragonfire, but Criston sprung his trap and alerted a hidden Aemond and Vhagar to join the battle.
Now look at the size, okay? Look at the size of the Vhagar. Why is it considered as the largest dragon?
However, before he could enter the battlefield, he saw Aegon and Sunfire unexpectedly join in. Despite Aegon's efforts, Sunfire was brutally losing the matchup against Melies. In a shocking plot twist, Aemond showed up and attacked both dragons, which resulted in Aegon and his dragon being burned alive. With Aegon defeated, Rhaenys directed Melies to attack Vhagar. But ultimately, Melies was outmatched by Vhagar, and she and
Look at the
Aegon
size.
defeated, Rhaenys directed
Look at the
Melies to
size
attack
differences.
Vhagar. But ultimately,
Not just
Melies
size
was outmatched by
difference, but
Vhagar,
battle
and she and Rhaenys were killed at the end. Desperate to protect her remaining family from the escalating slaughter,
Rhaenys' dragon name is Melis.
Rhaenyra tried to secretly send her two youngest sons, Aegon the Younger and Viserys, across the narrow sea to safety, but their ship sailed directly into a massive enemy fleet from the Triarchy, which had allied with the Greaves. Aegon managed to escape on his small dragon Stormcloud and returned to Dragonstone.
Rhaenyra shipped her two youngest sons across the narrow sea for their protection, only for her youngest to return days later, clinging to the neck of his wounded and dying dragon.
When word of the ambush reached Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's eldest son and heir, Prince Jaehaerys, flew out on his dragon, Vermax, to save his little brothers. But what followed was the bloodiest naval battle in history, known as the Battle of the Gullet. During the battle, Jaehaerys flew Vermax close to the sea and crashed. As Jaehaerys tried to cling to a floating piece of wreckage, he was gunned down by a swarm of crossbow bolts.
The foolish boy let Vermax be hooked like a trout and dragged into the sea, where he soaked up even more arrows than seawater. His brother disappeared over the horizon or beneath the waves. No one could say for sure.
This was a significant turning point in the history of Westeros, because Jaehaerys was Rhaenyra's heir and the only other person who knew of Aegon's prophecy.
Aegon the Conqueror's dream. He called it the Song of Ice and Fire.
Jaehaerys' death made Rhaenyra paranoid, and she refused to tell anyone about the prophecy. After the Battle of Rook's Rest, Aemond became the Prince Regent and took control of his brother's army. He ordered Sir Criston Cole to march onto Harrenhal so he could defeat Daemon.
I'll fly out to meet you when the time is right. My uncle is a challenger, I welcome.
I don't know why, but I like
When
this
Aemond
guy.
and Sir Criston reached Harrenhal, it was abandoned by Daemon's army. They secured the castle and celebrated their victory, but Daemon had a secret plan. As Aemond left King's Landing defenseless, Rhaenyra and Daemon saw the opportunity and seized it.
One day, King's Landing looked up and saw two dragons circling their foul city. Daemon and Rhaenyra had come for her throne.
Rhaenyra managed to capture King's Landing, but her victory was completely hollow, and she had grown paranoid. She believed one of the Targaryen bastards who had claimed the dragon was sleeping with her husband, and ordered her execution. However, Daemon spared her life, and wrote a letter to his nephew, challenging him to battle alone.
14 days later, a shadow blacker than any passing cloud swept over Harrenhal. Vhagar had come at last, and on her back rode one-eyed Prince Aemon.
While the two fought above God's eye, Caraxes locked his jaw around Vhagar's neck tightly, and they both began falling. Knowing they were both going to die, Daemon didn't hold back. He leaped directly from his saddle into the empty air and drove his Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister, straight through Aemon's eye.
Daemon ripped off his nephew's helm and drove the sword down into his one remaining eye, so hard the point came out the back of the young prince's throat.
Both men and massive dragons crashed into the lake with an explosive impact, killing all four of them instantly. So violent was the crash.
So the thing is that the most powerful at that time, the dragon was the largest was Vhagar, and his rider is Aemon Targaryen, that is the son of the Viserys, King Viserys, and the Queen Alicent Hightower. And Aemon is not that old; he might be in his early 20s. And the other one from the black is the Daemon Targaryen, who is the uncle of Aemon Targaryen, and his dragon is Caraxes. Caraxes is very flexible, it's not that big, and yeah, so in House of Dragons, this scene has not yet come. That means there's one more episode left, so we might see Aemon and Daemon Targaryens fighting, but that scene is not shown. That means it's still yet to come. So this is the book version, and it seems that we might see the two strongest dragon rider and the dragon might see, okay, so it says that they both are dead.
That the waters of God's eye boiled, and a great geyser of steam and mud and water rose up as high as the King's Spire Tower. Fire and blood But Rhaenyra didn't have time to grieve her husband, because when King Aegon fled, he had emptied the royal treasury, leaving Rhaenyra with no money to feed the people or fund the war. She was forced to raise taxes to extreme levels, which caused the starving people of King's Landing to turn against her.
Initially, I thought Rhaenyra Targaryen, she's a good person. I mean, she's a good person even later. And the later, I don't know what happened to her character all of a sudden, that she's not able to manage, she's not able to make a decision. And yeah, so I think which might lead to the reunion of her own the kingdom, because that even the season that I've watched in the in the House of Dragons, she was not able to make decisions. Everything was chaotic. She still wants to rule, but she's not able to make decisions. That's a precarious situation.
The situation escalated when the former Queen Helena jumped off the balcony and killed herself,
demanding justice for Queen Helena and her murdered son, among other foolish peasant fantasies.
As the city descended into chaos, a crazed barefoot prophet.
And adding to it that the Helena, right, most of the crowd, right, the people, the public, they love Helena.
Known as the Shepherd, started preaching to the angry mobs, telling them that the dragons were demons.
Okay, so if the Queen Helena dies, then I don't know, okay, what is the point of, okay, in the series, in the latest series, yesterday, it shows that Helena has a dream. I mean, she dreams, which becomes true. So she can foresee the future, like the Brandon Stark. So in that dream, she was, I don't know, she will get killed in this show, because in her dreams it shows that she was riding in a Dreamfire dragon, which looks very unique, and she gives birth to one more child, and she's having a family time. The chicken, the chickens, they were playing with the chicken and all those things. So I'm not exactly sure when the show will kill Helena, because if the Helena gets killed, then what is the point of showing all those things in the dream?
At the cause of all their suffering, tens of thousands of rioting small folk marched on the Dragon Pit, the massive dome structure where the Targaryens kept their dragons chained up.
There the demons dwell. This is their city. If you would make it yours, first you must destroy them.
Driven entirely by fear and madness, the mob broke down the doors and swarmed the trapped dragons. The dragons breathed fire and killed thousands of people, but they were chained to the floor and overwhelmed by the sheer crushing numbers of the crowd.
For every man who died, 10 more appeared, shouting that the dragons must die. One by one, they did.
Seeing the absolute chaos from the Red Keep, Rhaenyra's third son, Joffrey, desperately wanted to save his own dragon inside the pit. He jumped onto his mother's dragon, Syrax, and tried to fly there. But dragons are not like horses. They only accept one rider. As they were flying, Syrax violently twisted and threw the young prince off her back. Joffrey plummeted into the city below, breaking his back and dying in the streets.
The stupid beast didn't understand and twisted beneath him, fighting to be free of the little boy. Until it was.
By the time the morning sun rose, the massive dome of the Dragon Pit collapsed, and 5 Targaryen dragons lay dead in the ruins. Having lost her city and most of her dragons, a completely broken Rhaenyra fled back to Dragonstone with her son Aegon, hoping to rebuild her strength.
Rhaenyra abandoned the Iron Throne and sold her crown to buy passage for her and her last son back to Dragonstone.
But she walked straight into a trap. After King Aegon had escaped from King's Landing, he had gathered a few loyal men and travelled straight to his ancestral seat of Dragonstone and captured it. He killed the people who were loyal to her, and the rest turned against Rhaenyra. When she returned to Dragonstone, the men who had betrayed her captured her. In a final brutal act of vengeance, he had his dying dragon, Sunfire, burn and eat Rhaenyra alive. The worst part was that Aegon forced Rhaenyra's young son, Aegon the Young.
Aegon, okay. Even her, just wait. Why, okay, so Aegon, why did she name Aegon? Okay, so Rhaenyra, she has 6 child. Just wait, okay, Rhaenyra Targaryens. This one is killed. Viserys is killed. Joffrey is, I think, Joffrey Valeron is there. Aegon third, okay. How many children does Rhaenyra have? Rhaenyra Targaryen has 6 children in total from her 2 marriages, okay, and 2 marriages because of this. 10 children with, Laena Valeron. Jaehaerys is the eldest son, dragon rider who flew north for his mother, okay, and then the second son who tragically died on mission to Stormlands. Joffrey Velaryon, the youngest son from a first marriage. Aegon III Targaryen, also called Aegon the Younger, he survived the war and later became a king. Viserys second Targaryen survived the civil war and later, served as the Daemon Targaryen, children with Daemon Targaryens, and Visenya, a daughter who tragically stillborn during early labor. Okay, so Aegon the Younger, I don't know. Just wait. The Mad King, right? The Mad King name. The Mad King from Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, is the Aerys Targaryen. So it's not Aerys Targaryen. Okay, let's see who's his father. The Mad King. So he actually orders. That time the King's Guard was what is his name, man? Oh, how could I forgot the name of the Cersei Lannister's brother, man? Tywin Lannister. It's not Tywin Lannister. Cersei Lannister. His brother. Okay, Jaime Lannister. How could I forget his name? Jaime Lannister was the king guard, and the Mad King orders the king guard to destroy the entire city, just put the entire city on fire, which is weird. So yeah, Aerys II. Okay, Aerys II Targaryen. Aerys II Targaryen, also called the Mad King, and King's Cap was the 17th and the last member of the Targaryen dynasty to sit in Iron Thrones. Okay, so Mad King, ruling from 262 AC to this one. His children who lived to adulthood by his sisters by Rhaella were Rhaega, Viserys, and Daenerys Targaryen. His sister shows a great promise at the start of his reign, bringing peace and prosperity. And immediate descent into the insanities, however, was caused by, amongst the other factors, multiple miscarriages and stillbirths, the death of the three sons, and brief uprising known as the Defiance of the Tuscan Hills, in which he was held prisoners for half a year by the rebellious lords. The king's paranoia cruelly grew out of control, and Aerys was eventually killed by a member of his own guard, Sir Jaime Lannister. He was also known as the Kingslayer. In the sack of the King's Landing during the rebellion's reappearance, okay, Alysis, right? Okay, Alysis goes to Mad King, Mad Viserys, King's Cap, Aerys the, okay, I want to know, okay, family, Queen, okay, Issue, stillborn, okay, father, Jaehaerys the second Targaryen. Just wait, entire Targaryen family tree. Targaryen family tree is a big one. I want to know who's the actual dad of. Can't see clearly over here. Targaryen family tree. Let's see. It starts, okay. So first it goes to Targaryen family tree. Okay, House of the Dragons and the Game of Thrones. Okay, Targaryens, Aenir the Exile. Okay. Aenir the exiled Targaryen escaped from the Valyria. Okay, so that person, okay, and came in Targaryens, Aegon Targaryen, the first, Lords of the Dragonstones, Maegor Targaryens, Aerys Targaryens, so the first of his name, Alex, okay, Balon Targaryens, Daemon Targaryens, and Aerion Targaryens, okay, Aegon's conquest. So he's first. Okay, so this is the, okay, and this is the sigil, and yeah, Aegon conquest. So Aegon the Conqueror, and with Rhaenys Targaryens and Visenya Targaryens. So they have two children, Aenyra Targaryens and Maegor Targaryens. Okay, later marries Baratheon, Horus Baratheon. Okay, and Jaehaerys Targaryen. He was considered as a good king, so he was the fourth king. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and marries this, and then they have Aemon Targaryen. Okay, Aemon Targaryen. Daela Targaryen, Ellis, this one's okay, Balon Targaryen, and then Hightower. Hightower goes to Ota Hightower, okay, and yeah, okay, so they have this, okay, this daughter, this, and okay, so this, he becomes the fifth king, and then Velaryon, okay, when Velaryon comes Viserys and Aerys, okay, Visenya. I mean, it sounds similar, so I get confused when Visenya against Jaehaerys, Balin, Aemon, Viserys, right? And Corlys, okay, Velaryon goes to Waemont Valyron and Corlys Velaryon. So she marries, okay, I know this. They have Lena Velaryon and Lena Velaryon. She, that person later marries, okay, Rhaenyra Targaryen. And okay, he's the fifth king, Viserys Targaryen. And okay, so the House of the Dragon starts from him being the king, and he has. Yeah, so he first marries the other persons, and then they have Rhaenyra Targaryen, and his brother. It's his brother. Daemon Targaryen, his brother, younger brother, and yeah. So fifth, and then marries Alicent Hightower. They have Aegon Targaryen, Helena Targaryen, Aemon Targaryen, and then Daeron Targaryen. Yes, and they have a children, Jaehaerys Targaryen and Jaehaerys Targaryen, twin. Okay, and they have, yeah, so this was considered as an actual father, yeah, bastards. So they gets married, but this person is a gay, so that's why he's not physically attracted to Rhaenyra Targaryen. So they have abnormal relationships. So they have, so that's why that's why most of the fight happened, because most of the people say that these children are bastards of the Harwin Strong, and because you could see the color of the hair, right? Okay, Jaehaerys Targaryen, Lucerys Targaryen, Joffrey they gets killed, and and yeah, so they and okay, this children, and then they have she has Baela Targaryen and Rhaenyra Targaryen, which is the children. Okay, so Daemon Targaryen and Lena Valyron, they get married and they have a children, Baela Targaryen and Rhaenyra Targaryen. Okay, and okay, they both have Aegon Targaryen and Viserys Targaryen. So now the question comes, okay, which one is the Mad King? Okay, so they both have Aegon third and Targaryen and okay, Viserys the second, right? So okay, the first Viserys and second Viserys, they both have a twin, and they have okay, so this person, so I don't know the character, so it's not there. So they get married to Daeron Valyron, okay, and Daeron 1 Targaryen and Baelor 1 Targaryen. Aegon's this, okay, and Aemon Targaryen. So now I have to see which one is the Maester. Okay, Maester of the, okay, Maester Aemon. So okay, so there are lots of things, right? Daemon 1 Blackfire Daemon, and then comes Daeron Targaryen, Aerys 1 Targaryen, Maegor 1 Targaryen, and Aegon Targaryen. Aegon the 5th, okay, Maegor, and they both have 2 children. So he announced, okay, Aegon 5th Targaryen, and I think this is the egg, right? This is the egg. Aegon the 5th, right? Okay. Egg in Knight of the Seven Kingdom name. I think it's Aegon the 5th, right? Okay, Aegon the 5th Targaryen. Okay, so Aegon the 5th Targaryen. This is the egg. Aegon the 5th Targaryen. Aegon the 5th Targaryen and Maester Aemon. So he is in the Citadel, and they have Jaehaerys 2nd Targaryen and this marriage, and then okay. So that means the Mad King is the grandson of the egg. Okay, and Lannister, so the latest, Baratheon, okay, and this one's, and Aerys, right? Aerys 2nd Targaryen and Rhaela Targaryen equals to the Mad King's, okay, the Mad King's first son equals to Rhaegar Targaryen, which was killed by Dothraki, and no, okay, this is not killed by this. So this one, Viserys Targaryen, it's being killed by the Dothraki, and Daenerys Targaryen. So Game of Thrones, she's the main character. And Rhaegar Targaryen, who gets later killed, and the son Lyanna Stark, and that's the House Stark. So Mad King. So the Mad King. So that means Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow, Aegon, right? So they are the they are the Aegon, right? So Aegon 4th. So he might be Aegon the 5th or something. Uncle, aunt, and Tywin Lannister comes. Tywin Lannister, Jaime Lannister, Cersei Lannister, Robert Baratheon, Stannis Baratheon, Renly Baratheon. So they have Joffrey, actual father, it's him, yeah, Tommen Baratheon. Okay, so yeah, it makes sense. So what I got to understand is that the Mad King's daughter, okay, I know this one's, but I don't know this relationship, right? I thought they might be related to uncle or something, but it's the grandson of the egg, the Knight of the Seven Kingdom. That's interesting.
To stand there and watch his mother die. It would seem we are your prisoners, but do not think you will hold us long. My leal lords will find me, if they search the Seven Hells, mayhaps. Aegon II reclaimed the Iron Throne, but the realm was completely shattered, and his own men saw that he was too broke to rule. Shortly after his victory, Aegon was found dead, assassinated with a cup of poisoned wine, and Aegon III was crowned king.
And replaced with the very boy who had watched his mother devoured.
The Dance of the Dragons was over, but no one had actually won. Almost the entire Targaryen family had wiped each other out. Aegon's prophecy was lost, and the skies, which had once been full of dragons, were almost empty.
2 scared children spouting oaths they didn't understand.
Aegon...
It's in such a brief that they have not shown the Ormond Hightower and all, right? Ormond Hightower, I think I like this character.
The Broken tried to hold together a kingdom that had lost its magic, because the remaining dragons were slowly getting smaller and weaker and closer to extinction, and a Targaryen without a dragon was just a regular person, surrounded by lords who were just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Rebellions and more civil wars. After the ashes of the Dance of the Dragons finally settled, the Targaryen family was a shadow of its former self. Aegon III grew up completely hating the creatures that had once made his family so powerful, and in the year 153 AC, the very last stunted dragon finally died, leaving the skies of Westeros empty for the first time in over a century. But the one they named Dragonbane, or Aegon the Unlucky, he was afraid of dragons, for he'd seen his uncle's beast devour his own mother. After Aegon III died, the crown passed to his son, Daeron Targaryen. He wanted to finish Aegon the Conqueror's work, so he set his sights on the one kingdom his ancestors never managed to conquer, Dorne. Daeron succeeded, and conquered the Desert Kingdom freedom, but the Dornish immediately rebelled, using brutal guerrilla tactics and poisoned arrows. They murdered the king under the banner of peace, and Daeron lost tens of thousands of men in the process. Daeron Targaryen was only 14 when he conquered Dorne. Benjen, a conquest that lasted a summer. Your boy king lost 10,000 men taking the place, and another 50 trying to hold it. Someone should have told him that war is not a game. The throne then passed to his brother, Baelor the Blessed. Baelor was completely obsessed with the faith of the Seven and deeply hated violence. Instead of sending another massive army to Dorne to get revenge for his brother, he walked there barefoot to beg for peace.
Many septons and scepters even claim that Baelor rescued his cousin, the Dragon Knight, from a snake pit, because no viper would strike a man so pure and holy.
Baelor's extreme religious beliefs completely controlled his reign. He even locked his own sisters in a tower called the Maiden Vault, so he wouldn't be tempted by them.
Baelor himself, believing him the Smith reborn. And when he died, Baelor replaced him with an 8-year-old boy, whom Baelor had seen speaking with doves that answered with the voices of the Seven.
As Baelor grew older, he would constantly starve himself and fast as a way to control his desires, but this inevitably led to his death. Baelor starved himself to death, fast. Viserys might only have reigned a year, but he ruled for 15, while Daeron warred and Baelor prayed. And if he did remove his nephew, can you blame him? Someone had to save the realm from Baelor's follies. After a few brief power shifts, the crown eventually landed on the head of King Aegon IV, and he is widely remembered by history as the absolute worst king to ever sit on the Iron Throne. Aenys was weak, and Maegor was cruel. Aegon II was grasping. But no king before or after that would practice so much willful misrule. Aegon the Unworthy was corrupt, completely selfish, and spent his entire reign doing whatever he wanted while the small folk suffered. But the absolute worst thing he ever did happened on his literal deathbed.
One of my foolish ancestors didn't see what separated his bastards from our family proper and legitimized them all on his deathbed.
Aegon signed a royal decree.
Oh, to make all his bastard a legitimate son.
That officially legitimized every single one of his bastard children. He gave them all the legal right to inherit his lands, his titles, and even the Iron Throne itself. To make things even worse, he had previously given the legendary Valyrian steel sword of Aegon the Conqueror to his favourite bastard son, Daemon. When Prince Daemon had Blackfire in hand, there was not a man equal to him. Not Ulrich Dane with Dawn, no, nor even the Dragon Knight with Dark Sister. When Aegon died, his trueborn son took the throne as Daemon II. Daemon was a good, smart king who finally brought Dawn into the Seven Kingdoms peacefully through a royal marriage. But half the country completely hated the Dornish, and they didn't respect a king who fought with words and treaties instead of swords. He was a good king, everybody says so. He brought Dawn into the realm and made the Dornishmen our friends. They looked at the legitimized bastard son, Daemon, who was an incredibly skilled warrior, wielding the Conqueror's sword, and decided he was the strong leader Westeros actually needed. King Daeron was a good man. Why would you choose Daemon? Daeron was spindly and round of shoulder, with a little belly that wobbled when he walked. Daemon stood straight and proud, and his stomach was flat and hard as an oaken shield, and he could fight. Daemon took the name Blackfire and started a massive civil war known as the First Blackfire Rebellion. Once again, the realm was completely split in half.
I saw that thing right there.
Forcing brothers and friends to slaughter each other on the battlefield.
Adopting the name Blackfire, the bastards proved their nature and tried to seize their father's kingdom. And when they failed, their sons tried. When the sons failed, their grandsons tried.
The horrific generational war finally came to a climax during the Battle of the Nine Pin Kings, where Barristan the Bold killed Maelys the Monstrous.
Till finally Sir Barristan the Bold, Knight of the Kingsguard, slew Maelys the Monstrous in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, ending the last of the Blackfire line.
The Seven Kingdoms were left completely exhausted by decades of rebellion, and it was in this quiet, struggling world that a nameless orphan from the poorest streets of King's Landing picked up a sword and decided to become a knight. Tales of Duncan Egg. Roughly 90 years before the events of Game of Thrones and decades after the massive dragons died out, Tales of Duncan Egg. Roughly 90 years before the events of Game of Thrones and decades after the massive dragons died out, the Blackfires were pushed across the sea and the Seven Kingdoms fell into peace. While the High Lords played their political games in massive castles, the ordinary people were just trying to survive. And it was in this quiet, struggling world that a tall, nameless orphan from the streets of King's Landing picked up a sword and decided to become a knight. Dr. Lunk Pennytree used to call you. I recall. Lunks shouldn't try to think.
So normally what happened is that so in the Knight of the Seven Kingdom there is a concept called Hedge Knight. So the Hedge Knight, so normally what happened is that the people who are a knight, they are a battle tested and a person with the exceptional sword quality, the fighting, and so normally they pledge their oath to a particular house, stating that, okay, I promise that I will serve this and that lord or any of those things, and you have to support them, right? The house, the house. But that time there were a lot of knights who don't support anyone in general. They don't have one particular thing that, okay, I serve this lords, but they will do, and they will act in such a manner where they fit with, is right and wrong. So that's why these people are known as a hedge knight. But yeah, so if you serve any lord, then you get paid handsomely. But if you are a hedge knight, that means you don't have, such source of income. So fixed source of income. So that's why they're generally a poor people.
Breads are too bloody thick for such. His name was Sir Duncan the Tall. He was almost 7 feet tall, awkward, and completely broke. After Sir Arlen, the hedge knight who raised him, passed away, Dunk took his armour and rode to a massive tournament at Ashford Meadow, hoping to win some gold and make a name for himself.
Fits my grip as well as it ever fit his. And there is a tourney at Ashford Meadow.
On his way there, he met a strange, bald little boy who insisted on being his squire. The boy called himself Egg. Dunk thought Egg was just a poor, annoying orphan with a shaved head and had absolutely no idea the boy was actually Prince Aegon Targaryen, trying to run away from his life at the Red Keep.
And if you'll swear to do as you're told, I'll let you serve me for the tourney.
At the tournament, Dunk met a Dornish puppeteer named
And
Tansan.
every night they have a squire. Squire means a person who, a knight, they will not wash their own clothes. They will not cook their foods. So what they do is that they, hire, or they have a squire. So who will take after, who will clean, who will, wash the clothes of the knight. So yeah, and even that is not a bad thing at all, right? It's okay, because most of the successful and a good knight, most of the small aspiring to become a knight, they just squire a good knight to learn from them. Even the Jaime Lannister, right? He was, I think, a squire of a king, if I'm not wrong. He was at a very young age, so he used to. And there's a concept called a cup bearer, where people they hold the cup of a king. I mean, so basically they want to be close to those sorts of power, so that can get some advantage later.
Performed various kinds of plays. One night, she performed a play where a knight slayed a dragon. But in the audience stood a Targaryen prince who took umbrage in that. Aerion Targaryen was the cruel son of Maekar Targaryen, and believed he was a dragon in human form. So when he saw the puppet show, he considered it an act of...
the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, there's no dragon as such. All the dragons were dead.
Absolute treason. He ordered his men to burn her tent to the ground and snapped Tansel's fingers.
The honourable thing a Targaryen can do for this realm is finish on his wife's tits. So I think he meant to kill the fucking horse.
Egg saw this whole ordeal unfold and quickly rushed to tell Dunk. Dunk stepped right in and punched the royal prince directly in the face to stop him.
Sir Duncan, you have to come! Aerion's hurting her!
Hurting who?
Aerion commanded his royal guards to hold Dunk down and knock his teeth out. But right before they could mutilate him, Dunk's little bald squire stepped out of the crowd and ordered the guards to stop. This was the exact moment Egg finally revealed his true identity to the world. He was no peasant. He was Prince Aegon Targaryen, Aerion's own younger brother.
No, they won't. If they do, they'll answer to my father. Let go of him. Wait, Yorgul, do as I say.
But striking a prince was punishable by death or the loss of a hand. But Dunk demanded a trial by combat to prove his innocence. However, Prince Aerion, being extremely spiteful, demanded a trial by 7, knowing completely full well that Duncan was not going to win. This was an ancient, brutal 7-on-7 melee battle that hadn't been seen in Westeros for well over a century.
Trial of 7.
Dunk had to desperately scramble to find 6 knights brave enough to fight against the royal family on his behalf. In a massive twist that shocked the entire tournament, the crown prince of the realm, Baelor Breakspear, actually stepped onto the battlefield to fight on Dunk's side. Baelor was the heir to the Iron Throne, but he knew Dunk was an honourable man, defending the innocent.
I will take the Duncan side!
Dunk won the trial and kept his life, but it came at a massive, heartbreaking cost. Prince Baelor took a brutal blow to the head from his own brother during the chaotic fight, and when he took his helmet off, his skull had been split open. The heir of the 7 kingdoms died in the mud, all to save a completely nameless hedge knight.
Guys, get up, sir. Get up, sir. No.
Yeah, that person was an honorable man.
No. Please.
Feeling incredibly guilty, but bound by honor, Dunk took Egg as his official squire, and the two of them spent the next few decades wandering the 7 kingdoms. They slept in the dirt, fought off bandits, and saw exactly how the ordinary people suffered when the High Lords went to war. Once, they even accidentally stumbled straight into the Second Blackfire Rebellion at a castle called White Walls. Dunk ended up fighting in a chaotic joust and stopping a treasonous plot to overthrow the crown before it could even begin. The First Blackfire Rebellion perished on the red grass fields in blood and glory. The Second Blackfire Rebellion ended with a whimper. But while Dunk and Egg were wandering the dirt roads, the Targaryen family tree was being violently chopped down by a bizarre and tragic string of deaths. First, a massive plague called the Great Spring Sickness swept through the capital and killed the ruler, King Daeron II, along with the 2 younger sons of Baelor Breakspear. The throne then passed to Daeron's second son, Aerys I, but Aerys only ruled for a few years and eventually died without any children. Aerys keeps his own apartments, and it is said he would sooner take a book to bed than any woman. With Aerys gone, the crown passed to Egg's strict father, King Maekar I, but Maekar's reign was cut short when his head was crushed by a falling rock during a battle against rebellious lords. And my father never thought the throne would pass to him, and yet it did. He used to say that it was his punishment for the blow that slew his brother. I pray he found the peace in death that he never knew in life. Suddenly, the Iron Throne was empty, and the only options left were Maekar's sons, but their fates were just as dark. His eldest son, Daeron, drank himself to an early grave, then the cruel Prince Aerion Brightflame died screaming after drinking a literal cup of glowing green wildfire, completely convinced it would magically transform him into a dragon.
Aerion Brightflame, they called him. He thought drinking wildfire would turn him into a dragon.
The Lords
I hate this guy.
Westeros were running out of
Joffrey
options,
Baratheon.
so they turned to Aegon's older brother, Aemon, and begged him to take the throne. But Aemon was a maester and had already forged his chain as a scholar and a healer, and he refused to break his vows. He officially surrendered his claim to the crown so he could pass to his little brother. To make sure the lords could never use him in a political rebellion against his family, Aemon voluntarily gave up his royal name and exiled himself to the freezing edge of the world to join the Night's Watch. Decades later, viewers of Game of Thrones would come to know him as Master Aemon.
My brother Aegon.
Are you the Aegon Targaryen? So he's like, I'm the master of the Citadel.
Reigned after him when I had refused the throne. I'm a master of the Citadel. Bound in service to Castle Black and the Night's Watch.
With all his older brothers dead or exiled, the little bald squire from the mud actually inherited the Iron Throne. Aegor the Unlikely, they called him. Born the fourth son of a fourth son. He was crowned as King Aegon V, but the people called him Aegon the Unlikely because he was so far down the line of succession that no one ever thought he would rule. The very first thing he did was name his best friend, Sir Duncan the Tall, as the Lord Commander of his Kingsguard. Because of everything he saw on the dirt roads with Dunk, Aegon spent...
I would love to watch it. So Duncan the Tall as the commander and Aegon the Egg as the king.
His entire reign fiercely fighting the High Lords to pass laws that protected the poor and vulnerable small folk. A bloody-handed tyrant, intent on depriving us of our God-given rights and liberties. But Aegon's reign ended in absolute horror. The High Lords kept pushing back against his reforms, and Aegon started believing that he needed dragons to finally force them to accept his laws. He gathered his closest family at a royal summer palace called Summerhall and tried to hatch ancient petrified dragon eggs using wildfire and blood magic. This talk of a stone dragon. Madness, I tell you. Sheer madness. Did we learn nothing from Aerion Brightflame? From the Nine Mages? From the Alchemists? Did we learn nothing from Summerhall? No good has ever come from these dreams of dragons. I told Axel as much. The ritual went completely, terribly wrong, and a massive, uncontrollable inferno swallowed the palace. The fire burned King Aegon, his eldest son, and Sir Duncan the Tall alive. It is said that Dunk used his final moment palace. The ritual went completely, terribly wrong, and a massive, uncontrollable inferno swallowed the palace. The fire burned King Aegon, his eldest son, and Sir Duncan the Tall alive. It is said that Dunk used his final moments to break down the doors and save as many people as he could before the ceiling collapsed upon him. Summerhall's Maester Corso sent a letter before his death, describing the tragedy, but a mishap led to ink blotting out much of the information. The blood of the dragon gathered in one, 7 eggs to honor the 7 gods, though the king's own scepter had warned. Pyromancers, wildfire, flames grew out of control.
Oh no,
Town
man, that's
burned so
not
hot
a
that died, but for the valor of the
honorable
Lord
way to
Commander.
die.
The tragic flames of Summerhall destroyed the hopes of the small folk and took the lives of 2 of the greatest men in Westeros. But from those very same ashes, a new Targaryen prince was born on the exact night of the fire. A prince whose future actions would eventually tear the entire dynasty apart forever. The road to ruin. After the tragedy of Summerhall and the death of his father, Aerys Targaryen took the Iron Throne. When Aerys first became king, he was incredibly charming and full of grand, ambitious plans. He wanted to build a new wall, further north, construct a brand new capital city out of white marble, and even build massive canals to bring water to the deserts of Dorne.
For 20 years, his reign was peaceful and prosperous. Aerys was well loved by his subjects and respected by his lords.
He also made a very smart decision by appointing his brilliant, ruthless young friend, Tywin Lannister, as his hand of the king. For a while, the realm was incredibly peaceful and wealthy, but the pressure of the crown, combined with generations of Targaryen incest, slowly started to crack Aerys' mind.
As the saying goes, every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. They must have dropped the one.
That's a nice way to say. Every time a Targaryen is born, they must, every time a Targaryen is born, the god toss a coin, and the people
As the saying
hold their
goes,
breath.
every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. They must have dropped the one for King Aerys.
He grew horribly jealous of Tywin because the common people and the High Lords constantly whispered that Tywin was the one actually ruling the
Oh
Seven
my
Kingdoms.
god, man, Tywin Lannister. He's a hell of a character. He's a man of a few words, but when he talks, people listen. And the aura, the kind of the confidence, the kind of the... I think he's a proper lion. I've not seen it in any other... Because when he walks in a room, even I get scared, honestly. The way he stares at the people, the way he talks, his voice modulation, absolutely brilliant. He intimidates people when he talks, honestly.
While Aerys just sat in a chair. He eventually dismissed Tywin and made his only heir a member of the Kingsguard to spite him.
The Mad King had chosen me to spite my father and steal his heir. I wanted to rip off the White Cloak, but it was too late. The Kingsguard serves for life.
The king's sanity officially shattered during a rebellion at a town called Duskendale. Aerys marched into the town to demand their surrender, but he was immediately taken hostage. He was locked in a dark dungeon for 6 months, pushed, shoved, and completely stripped of his royal dignity. By the time Sir Barristan Selmy managed to sneak in and rescue him, the charming king was completely gone.
The king's guard couldn't defend him from the enemies he saw lurking in every shadow. My king went mad.
Aerys became entirely consumed by extreme paranoia. He stopped cutting his hair and fingernails because he was absolutely terrified of blades, and he refused to let anyone touch him. During this time, Aerys developed a sick and terrifying obsession with wildfire.
Aerys Targaryen. All the thousand maladies the gods visit on us. Madness is the worst.
He was a good man, just a charmer. To watch him melt away before my eyes, consumed by dreams of fire and blood.
Whenever he suspected someone of treason, he didn't just behead them, he had them burned alive with the green substance. And it is said he would literally become physically aroused while watching them scream and melt in the throne room.
I saw firsthand that a king who couldn't rule his own mind couldn't rule 7 kingdoms.
While the king was losing his mind, his
That's
son,
a nice,
Prince Rhaegar,
good way to say. A king who couldn't rule his mind, how could he rule the Seven Kingdoms?
grew into a beloved, handsome, and incredibly skilled warrior. The entire realm looked at Rhaegar and prayed for the day he would replace his insane father.
No matter the wounds Aerys dug into the realm, we had faith that his son would sew it back together again.
But Rhaegar was obsessed with ancient prophecies, and his obsession would end up being even more destructive than his father's madness. Rhaegar believed in the legend of Azor Ahai, the legendary warrior who stopped the Long Night. It was also believed that just like his predecessors, Rhaegar had a prophetic dream of the Long Night. He believed that the only way to reincarnate Azor Ahai was through a child born of ice and fire. It all started at the massive tourney at Harrenhal, the largest gathering of lords Westeros had seen in years. Rhaegar won the final joust, and tradition stated that he had to crown a woman as the Queen of Love and Beauty.
We each set our feet in our saddles and lowered our lances and charged. Well, I fell.
Everyone expected him to crown his own wife, Princess Elia Martell. Instead, Rhaegar rode his horse right past his wife and dropped a crown of blue winter roses directly into the lap of Lyanna Stark.
Muddy and bruised at ambushed
Okay, that
Rhaegar
means he's
present
married
Lyanna
that time. He's married, but he still went after Lyanna Stark.
Stark with the victor's crown of roses, though she was betrothed to Robert Baratheon. And Rhaegar himself was married to Elia Martell. We all know what happened after.
A year after the tournament, Rhaegar and Lyanna completely disappeared. Together, the Starks and Baratheons believed that the Targaryen prince had forcefully kidnapped her. Lyanna's hot-headed older brother, Brandon Stark, rode straight to the gates of the Red Keep and demanded that Rhaegar return his sister.
If he'd only known the depth of Aerys' madness, he wouldn't have dared to hurt him.
Aerys immediately had Brandon arrested for treason and commanded his father, Lord Rickard Stark, to come to King's Landing to answer for his son's crimes. When Lord Rickard Stark arrived, he demanded a trial by combat. Aerys agreed, but in a horrific twist of cruel madness, the king declared that fire would be the champion of House Targaryen.
Lyanna's father and eldest brother demanded justice. The Mad King obliged, laughing as he dispensed it.
He suspended Lord Rickard from the rafters in his full armor and lit a raging fire underneath him, slowly roasting him alive in his own steel shell. Simultaneously, he had strapped Brandon into a brutal strangulation device and placed a sword just barely out of his reach. As Brandon was forced to watch his father burn alive, he tried to grab the sword, but instead he choked himself to death.
Aerys burned him alive, and I could do nothing but watch. I had sworn a vow to a mad king, and was honor-bound to obey him, even at the cost of my soul.
Straining to reach the blade to save him. After this slaughter, the Mad King sent a raven to the Eyrie, demanding that Lord Jon Arryn hand over the heads of his 2 young wards, Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon. Instead of obeying, Jon Arryn raised his banners. The North.
So that's how the Targaryen comes to end, and now comes the Robert, the Baratheons' rebellion against the Targaryen. I think Robert Baratheon rebellion was companioned by his friend, loyal friend, Ned Stark. Even he could have become a king that time, but he chose not to. And Jon Arryn.
The Stormlands and the Vale all grouped together, teamed up, and the realm completely exploded into Robert's rebellion. As the war raged across the continent, Rhaegar and Lyanna had secretly gotten married. They had retreated to Dorne and were expecting a child. This child was Jon Snow, and he fulfilled the combination of ice and fire.
Robert's rebellion was built on a lie.
So yeah, the Song of Ice and Fire means so ice. That's the Stark, and fire is the Targaryen.
Rhaegar didn't kidnap my aunt or rape her. He loved her.
When Rhaegar returned to King's Landing, he mustered his own army to meet Robert Baratheon on the Trident. The rebel army met the Royal Targaryen army in the freezing waters, and while Robert was outnumbered, he still faced them head on. In the absolute chaos of battle, Robert Baratheon and Prince Rhaegar finally fought each other.
The battle raged around us. I faced off with Rhaegar, the stag and the dragon right there in the ford of the river.
Rhaegar was a brilliant swordsman, and he managed to wound Robert, but Robert was fighting with a blind, unstoppable, implacable fury.
On the banks of the Trident, my brother fought the man whose wife hid
Robert Baratheon, right? So, okay, he doesn't use a sword. I mean, he might be using it, but his real weapon is the hammer.
And who fought to steal his birthright in return. In the end, Robert wanted it more.
He swung his massive, spiked warhammer with his terrifying strength and completely crushed Rhaegar's chestplate. With Rhaegar dead and the royal army totally crushed, the path to King's Landing was wide open. For the entire war, Tywin Lannister had sat safely in his castle, completely ignoring calls for help from both sides. But once he saw that the Targaryens had definitively lost, he quickly marched his massive army to the gates of King's Landing. The Mad King was thrilled, believing his old friend had finally come to save him, so he ordered the city gates to be opened. But that was a fatal mistake.
I warned Aerys not to open the gates. Prince Rhaegar was dead, our army scattered. The lion does not stir unless he smells meat.
The Lannister army immediately flooded the streets and began violently sacking the city, murdering, looting, and burning everything in sight. Trapped inside the Red Keep and listening to his city tear itself apart, the Mad King commanded his pyromancers to ignite massive caches of wildfire that he had secretly hidden under every street, house, and sept in King's Landing. But the 17-year-old knight sworn to protect him refused to let 500,000 innocent people burn.
When a dog goes mad,
That is Jaime
why not a
Lannister.
king?
Jaime Lannister drew his sword, chased the Mad King to the foot of the Iron Throne, and drove his blade straight through Aerys' back. He slit the king's throat, saving the entire city, but earning himself the deeply
It's
reviled.
actually a very, very, and when some people say that he's a kingslayer, most of the people feel that, okay, he's a kingslayer, nice and all. No, it's not a nice at all. He says that Jaime Lannister. People, after he killed the king, people didn't trust him because, see, okay, when you're a Kingsguard, your only word, oath, is with the king, to protect the king. You have sword. That time the word, meant a lot of things, right? It meant everything. If you're not a man of a word, then you're not a man at all. So that time he swore an oath to protect whatever, doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, the king is doing. I saw that I want to protect the king. And he not only protect the king, he not only not protect the king, he killed him. Just imagine.
Title of Kingslayer for the rest of his life.
A single thrust was all it took to end the greatest dynasty the world had ever seen.
The nearly 300-year-old Targaryen dynasty was completely shattered.
300
The dragons
years.
were long dead. The Mad King was completely overthrown, and a brand new, hammer-wielding king was about to sit on the Iron Throne, totally unaware of the icy threat
Even
slowly
Robert
waking up
Baratheon is
from the
not a
far, cold
good king.
north. The Game of Thrones. For nearly 2 decades after the Mad King
Game of
fell,
Thrones.
King Robert Baratheon sat
Now
on the
comes Game of Thrones. Ta-da-da, ta-da-da. I love the music, honestly. Ta-da-da, 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 ta-da-da. Just wait, okay. Game of Thrones titles track composer, right? I think he is from Italian or something. Rivendi, I forgot his name, man. Okay, Ramin Djawadi. The theme song and the score for Game of Thrones was composed by an Iranian German composer, Ramin. Okay, R-E-M-I, Ramin Djawadi. Is a Iranian German. Okay. Okay, no, I don't think I can play. There's a copyright song. Who composes the BGM? Ramin Djawadi. Okay, I don't know how to spell it. Ramin Djawadi. Just wait. Okay, let's.
The iconic theme song and score for Game of Thrones was composed by the Iranian-German composer Ramin Djawadi.
Raman Djawadi.
Key details about the composition.
Okay, done. Thank you.
What?
Thank you, Siri. Not Siri, Bard.
the Iron Throne. But Robert was a warrior, not a ruler. He spent his time drinking and hunting while his council played dangerous political games behind his back. The fragile peace of the realm was finally shattered completely when his hand, Jon Arryn, was mysteriously murdered by Peter Baelish. Robert travelled straight to Winterfell to ask his oldest friend, Ned Stark, to take the now empty position. Ned moved south to King's Landing and quickly uncovered a massive treasonous secret. Robert's children were not actually his, but were secretly fathered by the Queen's twin brother, Jaime Lannister.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win. You die. There is no middle ground.
Before Ned could tell the king the truth, Robert was killed by a wild boar in a hunting accident that Cersei had secretly arranged. Joffrey Baratheon took the throne and immediately proved his cruelty by having Ned Stark publicly beheaded.
My mother wishes me to let Lord Eddard join the Night's Watch, but they have the soft hearts of women. Sir Ilyn, bring me his head.
This single, arrogant act of violence ignited a massive continent-wide conflict known as the War of the Five Kings. Robb Stark marched south to avenge his father, while Robert's brothers, Stannis and Renly, both claimed...
Robb Stark's alias name is the Young Wolf.
...the Iron Throne for themselves. Stannis cemented his claim with the help of a Red Priestess, who was called Melisandre. Melisandre preached the religion of the Lord of Light, and declared Stannis as the prince who was promised, aka Azor Ahai.
The prince who was promised.
Stannis Baratheon, your sword awaits you.
But while the lords and houses of Westeros bled each other dry fighting for a metal chair, a very different kind of fire was waking up across the narrow sea.
Will. It is not your screams I want. Only your life.
The exiled Daenerys Targaryen lost her Dothraki husband, but she stepped directly into his roaring funeral pyre and miraculously emerged completely unburnt, carrying 3 baby dragons. Magic, it seemed, had officially returned to the world.
Stars don't fall from men. Red comet means one thing, boy. Dragons.
Back in Westeros, the Lannisters were losing on the battlefield, so they resorted to pure treachery. During Robb Stark's march south, he needed to cross the Twins, but the Lord of the Twins was an old and unpleasant man. He agreed to let Robb Stark pass through if he married one of his daughters. While Robb initially agreed, he ended up going back on the agreement and married a nurse named Talisa.
I think Robb made a big mistake there, right? So he shouldn't have either agreed, because first he agreed to get married, then later he goes back on his words and he's married someone else. That led to the corroboration between the Lannister and where the Red Keep, where the entire family of not entire family, most of the family, that is the Catelyn Stark, is most trusted allies, and the Robb Stark has been killed.
And she is mine, from this day until the end of my days.
This infuriated Lord Frey, and with the help of the Boltons, created a secret alliance with the Lannisters to murder Robb Stark. Upon their return to the Twins, Robb, along with his mother and his entire army, was brutally murdered at the wedding feast of Edmure Tully and Lord Frey's daughter.
Lannisters send their regards.
This became infamous as the Red Wedding, but the Lannister victory did not last long. Joffrey was eventually poisoned at his own wedding, and his uncle, Tyrion Lannister, was framed for the murder. After his younger brother Tommen was crowned as king, Tyrion was put on trial, but he knew he would not get a fair trial. So, with the help of Lord Varys and Jaime, he escaped, murdered his own father Tywin with a crossbow, and fled across the Narrow Sea to join Daenerys.
I think even this one, the Tywin Lannister, doesn't matter how bad or how, that kind of a person he is, but I don't think he deserves to die in that state. Which is, not an honorable way to die for a warrior. He gets shot by his own son in the toilet while he was shitting.
You're no son of mine. I am your son. I have always been your son.
Meanwhile, up at the freezing edge of the world, Jon Snow had joined the Night's Watch and quickly realized that the true threat wasn't the Wildlings, but the White Walkers. After Jon defeated Mance Rayder with the help of Stannis Baratheon, he became the next Lord Commander of the Night Watch. As the new commander, he made the highly hated choice to let the Wildlings through the wall to save them from the army of the dead. And as he saved the thousands from Hardhome, he truly saw the strength of the White Walkers. After Stannis helped Jon Snow to save the Wildlings, he traveled south to Winterfell to recapture it from the Boltons. However, due to the harsh weather, he was unable to march far before he was overwhelmed. In an attempt to save his army, he was manipulated by Melisandre into burning his daughter alive, as she believed only a king's blood would save the camp. As Stannis burned his daughter in the name of a prophecy, Melisandre abandoned him, no longer believing him to be the prince who was promised. Brutally defeated and backstabbed, Stannis marched into battle, which ended in his all too obvious death.
I, Brienne of Tarth, sentence you to die. Do you have any last words?
After Jon Snow brought back the Wildlings south of the Wall, a few of the brothers of the Night's Watch disagreed with his choices and stabbed Jon Snow to death.
For the Watch.
Meanwhile, Brandon Stark had escaped north of the Wall in search of the Three-Eyed Raven, after Theon Greyjoy betrayed the Starks and captured Winterfell. After travelling through the north, he reached a giant weirwood tree, where an old man sat entangled with its roots. The man was the Three-Eyed Raven, and slowly showed Bran the power of prophetic visions.
I've been many things. Now, I am what you see.
But one night Bran walked alone and saw the White Walkers standing together as an army. But just as he tried to come back, the Night King saw him and marked him. The Night King wanted to kill the Three-Eyed Raven because he was the memory of the world and could see everything.
He saw me! The Night King! He saw me! He touched you.
The Night King tracked Bran down to the cave and tried to kill the Three-Eyed Raven. But before he could, Bryden transferred all of his knowledge to Bran and made him the new Three-Eyed Raven. Back at the Wall, after Jon had been betrayed, the Red Priestess, the one who had called Stannis the prince who was promised for all of these years and seasons, now decided it was Jon who was truly the heir to that Sword of Fire. She resurrected Jon. After his resurrection, he left the Night's Watch and took back Winterfell from the sadistic Ramsay Bolton in a massive, brutal clash known as the Battle of the Bastards. Down in King's Landing, Cersei Lannister was completely backed into a corner by her political and religious enemies. Instead of standing trial, she went for the Mad King's hidden cache of wildfire and blew up the Great Sept, wiping out all her rivals in a single, massive explosion. Her last surviving son, King Tommen, committed suicide in grief, allowing Cersei to finally crown herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. Her reign was immediately threatened when Daenerys Targaryen finally sailed to Westeros with her massive army and full-grown dragons. Daenerys allied with Jon Snow, but they both realized the Iron Throne was a secondary problem.
I will allow you to mine the dragon glass and forge weapons from it. Any resources or men you need, I will provide.
Okay, I told you to kill the the White Walkers, you need a dragon glass to kill, and so he made a compromise or had an agreement with the Daenerys Targaryens, because Daenerys Targaryen place is known as Dragonstone, where they are a dragon glass.
Not matter at all if the entire world was dead, killed and consumed by the White Walkers pouring down from the frozen north. When the Night King brought down a massive section of the wall, he began marching his undead army straight to Winterfell. The living armies fought a desperate, terrifying battle in the freezing dark. They barely survived, and the war only ended when Arya Stark dropped out of the shadows and drove a Valyrian steel dagger straight into the Night King's chest. shattering his entire army into ice and dust as a result. The same Valyrian steel dagger, I may add, that had the prophecy of a song of ice and fire. With the dead defeated, Daenerys marched her army south to finally tear Cersei off the Iron Throne. The battle was over almost instantly, and the city bells rang out to signal a total surrender. But the paranoia and grief of losing her closest friends had completely broken Daenerys. She didn't stop when the bells rang, but instead flew her massive dragon directly over the city walls and spent hours burning King's Landing to the ground, slaughtering hundreds of thousands of innocent people who had absolutely nowhere to run.
So even I don't understand this one, right? Okay, what had happened in the few episodes is that Daenerys Targaryen, right? From the start, she was a good person. She was playing a good cop. Later, I don't know how it turned. Within 1-2 episodes, right? She completely changed, and later she becomes the person who she doesn't want it to become. Actual opposite. So I don't know what changed. It was like a sudden change, which sound with little. I mean, it doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't look good to me as well, right? So I thought like they could have shown the changed slowly, but how could a person change like that? They've just completely changed her character. Just made her the same mad person.
Nowhere to run. The breaker of chains had become the same tyrant she had once sworn to destroy.
They don't get to choose.
Seeing the terrifying ash-covered world she planned to build, Jon Snow made the ultimate heartbreaking sacrifice. He embraced the woman he loved and drove a dagger directly into her heart to stop the cycle of violence.
You are my queen.
In a massive display of grief, her dragon Drogon unleashed a torrent of fire. But it wasn't Jon he aimed at. Instead, Drogon turned his monstrous, deadly flames at the Iron Throne itself, melting the twisted swords down to a puddle of glowing slag, completely destroying the very seat of power that had caused 300 years of nearly perpetual suffering. The wheel was finally broken. The surviving lords of Westeros agreed to a brand new system, where kings would be chosen by a council rather than being born to the position.
There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
They elected Bran Stark as the new king and allowed the North to become an independent kingdom. The continent was deeply scarred and completely exhausted, but for the first time in centuries, they had a real chance to start over. So that was the entire history of Game of Thrones. Comment down below if you think we missed something critical from this shortish overview, and don't forget to subscribe.
So I'll tell you, right? So at last, Brandon Stark becomes the king because apparently he has a lot of stories to tell. I don't think, even after becoming Three-Eye Raven, he couldn't help that much. I don't think even if he could see the future, he couldn't help that much. So second, the Hand of the King becomes the Tyrion Lannister. He says that you've done a lot of mistakes. Now you have to rectify all those mistakes. And Jon Snow, he has to abandon his entire thing, post and all those things, and he has to go back to to become the commander of the Night's Watch. And Sansa Stark, she becomes the Queen of the North. And Arya Stark, she goes in a ship to explore, and what is his name, man? Samuel. What is his name, man? I forgot about it. Game of Thrones. Sam, I think it's called. Okay, yeah, Sam Turley. Okay, Sam Turley. He becomes the Maester because he likes reading. All those things. Okay, so yeah, and that's it. And then I think the treasurer, right, the finance minister becomes the. I think it was the name. I think it was the Tyrion Lannister, a person who supported Tyrion Lannister. Okay, Game of Thrones goes to Tyrion Lannister's friend. I think it was called Lannister Bronn. Okay, yeah, Bronn. I think he becomes the Bronn becomes that person. Okay, there's an entire website of it. Yeah, so this person, the Bronn's house, he becomes later. So this is the Hound, the King's Guard, Sandor Clegate's house, Hightower, Gregor Clegane, his brother. Later he becomes the Mountains. Gendry Baratheon, this is the bastard son of the Robert Baratheon, Sansa Stark. Theon Greyjoy, okay, Gendry, okay, Gregor Clegane, and Theon Greyjoy. Daenerys Targaryen, Samwell Tarly, and then Shea. So Shea is she's a whore. She's a whore of Tywin and Tyrion, both son and the father. So yeah, that is the Game of Thrones, and let's see if I can find anything interesting. So this is the Game of Thrones. Let's see, read the comment. I cannot believe that all of this came from one man's brain. It's amazing. That's what I'm saying. How is it possible? Just wait. Is it true that entire Game of Thrones universe was one person's, that is George R.R. Martin's idea? I don't believe it, honestly. There could be a lot of other people. Yes, the entire Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire, is created from the imaginations of the George R.R. Martin, though he heavily based his fictional world on real medieval history and myths. Just imagine how I can't even name, make a name. Imagine a name. So he's made like a 3,000 characters just based on imaginations. Author's mind. George Martin is the sole creator who wrote the books, designed the deep history, invented characters, real history. He drew heavy inspiration from the real event like English Wars of the Roses, the Gardner style. Martin famously said he does not plan every single out. Instead, he creates characters and let the story grow naturally like a garden. I know okay, just wait. Let me see. Like, I know how he brainstormed the first chapter with the dire wolf pulps. How did he turn that into a whole 12,000 year timeline with hundreds of different families and empires and make the whole things make sense? There's probably thousands. Natural talent and practice also organizations, or else it becomes overwhelming. Yeah, man. Confirm Johnson or Targaryen will Joe Martin ever complete Game of Thrones? It seems uncertain whether George R. R. Martin will finish a Song of Ice and Fire's book series with progress stalled on the Winds of the Windust and 110,000 completed pages. Martin has stated that if he passes away before finishing, he does not want another author to complete the books. The series would remain unfinished, stuck at roughly this one vision with the hundreds more still needed. Other priorities distracted by television projects like House of Dragons and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms alongside other writing goals. No success. Martin explicitly no other writers will finish the novel.